PS Win. Written by
嘟嘟雪球
Chapter 296. Under Chen Chen's arrangement, all members of the Dongfeng Corps core group had corresponding arrangements. This is undoubtedly good news. Once the company sets up its business, there will be no need to worry about having no one available. In fact, to be a PMC, it is definitely not enough to just be able to fight. Of course, if the boss is the only one in charge of the overall situation, that would be completely inadequate. A hero needs 3 helpers. If there are not enough people to manage such a large business, do you really have to adopt a barbaric model like a bandit? In that case, a company cannot develop. No matter how successful it is, it can only serve as a thug for some big forces at most, and it is impossible to have the ability to operate independently. But now, although the degree of specialization is not yet enough, the framework of Dongfeng PMC has been established. We have a CEO, a CTO, a CFO, and even COO and CAO. Everyone still has to cross the river by feeling the stones, but a fishmonger can become the boss, not to mention those who have carried guns. Everything was ready, the general direction was basically clear, and Chen Chen finally had time to gather up the scattered strings and pull the kite back to himself. The first thing he had to solve was Jiang He's problem. After returning to Dakali, he had gradually reconnected with his previous connections and slowly established a relatively simple intelligence network, which also provided considerable help to the Dongfeng Corps during the entire Dakali offensive. In Chen Chen's opinion, he has passed the test and can completely sever ties with Hua State. So, after greeting Bao Xiaomei, Chen Chen invited Jiang He to his villa and formally invited him to join the Dongfeng Corps. The latter was naturally willing. Having witnessed the Dongfeng Corps' brutal tactics, he was truly devoted to it. Boss, I will follow you from now on. If you tell me to go east, I will never go west. I don't want anything. I just want revenge. Whether it's 10, 20, or 30 years, as long as it's before I die, I can wait. Hearing his words, Chen Chen shook his head slightly and then replied, "This matter is not that simple. If you want to kill a drug dealer or a warlord, to be honest, I might grit my teeth and do it for you. But the people you want to kill are Thais, high-ranking Thai officials. If I really help you do it regardless of the consequences, then the rest of our brothers will really have no chance to survive. So, you have to wait and be patient. I can only tell you that if you want to do something, you can't do it by yourself or by force. You have to rely on the big trend." "I see." Jiang He nodded solemnly and then replied, "You guys are just trying to build momentum. I can see that. Hua State wants Tongyai. What they want to do is too big. Our Dongfeng Corps will definitely not be absent. You will definitely become the overlord in the future. Not only in Southeast Asia, you have the final say, but also, stop talking." Chen Chen interrupted him, and the latter nodded obediently and shut up. From Chen Chen's perspective, Jiang He's intelligence capabilities have indeed reached a very mature level. Apart from anything else, Chen Chen himself has not told anyone about the Dongji incident. He was able to infer and guess the subsequent plans of the Dongfeng Corps. It can be said that his keenness is excellent even among the intelligence outlets in the north. "Next, I need you to do something." After a pause, Chen Chen continued, "Intelligence work requires a lot of resources, complex plans, and sufficient manpower. You did well in the past, but in essence, you were still fighting alone. I hope you can really consider what you are doing from the perspective of specialization and scale, and find a way to really make it happen. You want to set up an information service company that does not belong to the Dongfeng Corps. I will control this company in a reasonable manner and provide you with sufficient funds and resources to support you. What I need you to do is to collect as much intelligence as possible, all intelligence that is beneficial to us. What suggestions do you have for the company's business?" Jiang He frowned slightly, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "First of all, the company's business coverage must be sufficient and the penetration must be strong enough. I used to sell mosquito nets. The coverage was actually pretty good, but the penetration was actually very limited. I couldn't get into the real core areas. I was thinking that if possible, why don't we do communications?" "Communication?" Chen Chen was stunned. "Are you talking about communication terminals or device networking services? Communication terminals are meaningless, and penetration is even worse. We cannot provide equipment networking services, as they are all taken over by ZTE, Huawei, and Ericsson. But there is one business we can provide MS, which is network maintenance services." "What's the meaning?" Chen Chen was a little confused. He really didn't know much about this. "It's very simple. Our civilian cellular network, that is, the mobile phone network, requires base stations to transmit signals. Those towers and antennas we see. The coverage of this thing in Dakali and Pubei is not high now, but it will definitely increase in the future. Once the coverage rate is high, someone will have to do maintenance, which means tightening screws, removing rust, testing, replacing batteries, replacing generator fuel, maintaining lines, and so on. No one is doing this business right now. Most of the business in Dakali is in the hands of the militia under Zhao Jiaoyang, and they're just doing it as a makeshift business. If we can take the lead, take over this part of the business, and specialize in it, we can even penetrate into Thailand. Because a large part of Pubei's internet cables come from Thailand. Of course, in addition to Thailand, if we can become a large professional team in the future, this business can be spread all over the world." "Boss, you know, communications are the area that deals most with officials." "I see." Chen Chen finally understood Jiang He's idea. In fact, this is an upgraded version of the mosquito net business. What he needs to do is to expand his influence with the help of a business that everyone needs, and then after the business scope is wide enough, he can obtain the necessary intelligence through the information and channels that come with the business. Very mature and professional thinking. It's the 21st century. No one still thinks that intelligence work is just like 007, stealing things from a heavily protected safe house and then selling them on the so-called dark web, right? Only by establishing a broad intelligence network can we obtain open-source intelligence stably and closed-source intelligence safely. Although the MS business that Jiang He mentioned cannot get involved in more core and direct networking work, it is indeed quite close. Communications is a big business, and it is also the area where the most controversies regarding espionage and intelligence occur. Why are there so many controversies? Isn't it because it can be tampered with? Of course, there are a few places where back-end services can be tampered with, but as long as we continue to develop, we don't necessarily have to focus on the back-end. Just do as you say. You can come up with a company name yourself. Don't make it have any connection with the Dongfeng core. Clear. Jiang He nodded and replied, I've already thought about it. Let's keep it simple, just ordinary, and call it communication service. Chen Chen hesitated for a second before finally saying, that's fine as long as it's not Unicom. After Jiang He arranged the work, Chen Chen immediately found the Jackal. In fact, Jackal had been waiting in Dakali for nearly a week, but Chen Chen had been too busy before and had never come to find him. And now, when Jackal finally saw Chen Chen, his expression was like that of a resentful woman who had been neglected. Sunken ship, I was the first one to come here, whether it was to deliver equipment, provide support, or contact you on my own initiative. Please stop for a moment. Chen Chen raised his hand to interrupt him, and then said, you don't have anything important to do? Why are you in such a hurry? Hearing his words, the Jackal glared and said, okay, now you say I have nothing important to do. That's not what you said when I asked for equipment before. Armored vehicles don't matter, but security doesn't matter? That it's important, please stop acting and be serious. That it's not serious. The Jackal sighed. Why? Because I really don't have anything important to do. Then what the hell are you talking about? Chen Chen rolled his eyes at him, and the two sat down on the sofa in the living room. Chen Chen asked Lin He to pour a cup of coffee for Jackal, and then said, you don't have anything important to talk to me about, but I actually have something to talk to you about. I'm going to Indonesia soon, so you may not see me for some time to come. However, our cooperation will continue, but the form of cooperation may need to change. I came here to talk to you about the future. How about it? Do you have any ideas? As soon as he said this, the Jackal stopped jokingly looking at his face. His brows furrowed slightly, and after thinking for a moment he said, to be honest, my current position is very embarrassing. Before, because of Chaseley's relationship, I could provide you with advanced equipment that was hard to get and gain an irreplaceable position. But now that Dakali has been taken, and you will soon expand outward and gain legal status, the role of Chaiseli will be much smaller. At least, you now have more options for what equipment you want. We are no longer irreplaceable. So it's hard for me to think of what I can do, to be honest. Unless I leave Chaiseli and join your company directly, maybe I can still be of some use. Jackal spoke quite frankly. In fact, even Chen Chen himself was surprised that he would speak so frankly about the current issue. This was equivalent to directly showing his disadvantages and trump cards on the table. If the two were negotiating, Jackal could even be said to be in an irreversible disadvantage. But fortunately, the two were not negotiating, but just discussing. So Chen Chen said, it's impossible to leave Chaiseli. I even hope you can continue to climb up in Chaiseli. This is a great platform and also your biggest hidden advantage. If we give it up, it will be a loss for both of us. But I have to say that if you don't leave Chaiseli, there is really very little you can do. So, this is my plan. Think of a way to go up one more leader. Then, we will completely establish connections in Pubei. You can follow Chaseley's request and not sell advanced weapons or participate in actual conflicts, but you need to take over the work of basic equipment, basic training, and basic life for the Dongfeng Corps. Well, do you think you can do it? Absolutely. The Jackal answered immediately. I understand. You want me to customize a base solution for you. That's right. It was so simple to talk to a smart person. Chen Chen had almost considered all the elements a PMC needed. What was the only missing link? A base. How to set up a base and how to manage a base is actually not a simple task. As the team grows larger, it is no longer possible to gather when there is benefit and disperse when there is no benefit as before. Instead, all members must be managed centrally. In terms of base construction, Chen Chen can indeed do it himself. But the problem is that those who are capable should do more work, and cost effectiveness should also be considered. He can't devote too much energy to it, as that would delay him from doing more big things. And in this regard, Chaiseli happened to do very well. Their base is one of the best in Mungka, and even in the entire Pubei. Its functional integrity, safety, and management standardization are better than most military camps here. There is really no better choice than letting Jackal take the lead in doing this. Jackal also instantly understood what Chen Chen meant. The expression-based solution was really professional and appropriate. The two hit it off immediately, and a smile appeared on the Jackal's face again. Very good, very good. I hadn't thought of this direction before. But this business is really good, and the head office will support it. Also, if there are good cases to support it, we can continue to expand our business in the future. Not just Pubei. Wherever you go, we'll build a base there. Damn, I feel like this business has a bright future. No, I still want to leave Chaseley later. That's right, that's right. The Jackal's tone became more and more agitated. Chen Chen immediately guessed what he was thinking, so he quickly interrupted him and said, don't think too far ahead. The Jackal chuckled and replied, don't worry, I'm not thinking too far ahead. I was just thinking for Africa, we can put it in Djibouti for the Middle East, we can put it in Keshem for South Asia, it must be Mungka, and for Europe. Okay. Chen Chen interrupted him again, and Jackal decisively shut up and made a zipper-pulling gesture. Anyway, this is your arrangement. Build the base in Mungka for me first. I may have to go to Indonesia for a few months. I hope that when I come back, I will see a base that is better than the Chasri base. After hearing Chen Chen's words, Jackal drank the coffee in the cup in one gulp, and then replied, Of course. Absolutely. After talking with the Jackal, all the affairs of the Dongfeng Corps could be said to have been completely arranged. In the next period of time, Chen Chen planned to rest well, train well, wait for notification from Xiaoyu, and prepare to set off for Indonesia. However, even Xiaoyu didn't know exactly when they could set off. After all, she not only had to coordinate equipment and personnel, but also various relationships at Qingshan Group, and it was indeed impossible to decide in a short period of time. As a result, the Dongfeng Corps entered a relatively stable transition period. The wounded were treated, equipment was replenished to a certain extent, the business trial operation was launched, and Laoju's expansion work was also carried out step by step. Time passed uneventfully. After the overall situation was stabilized, Peng Shuqing began to deal with the cancer businesses of Wanfeng Group. According to Chen Chen's request, these 3 hotels can be retained, but no pornography, gambling, or drugs are allowed. What? You said that if you close it, you won't make money? Don't make a fuss. If Chen Chen makes this money, he will never have the chance to make big money in the future. After following Chen Chen, Peng Shuqing's vision became bigger. Therefore, even if someone in the city was interested in taking over the 3 hotels, he was not moved at all, but fundamentally cut off all ties with his past business. The gambling table was pulled to the front door and burned. The waiter had his contract terminated on the spot, and the pimp who tried to sneak into the hotel again was sent to the police camp, which was now under the control of Hebupa. Hebupa took the opportunity to crack down on several small-scale drug trafficking gangs in the city. After this series of operations, the 3 hotels have completely become rare green hotels in the city and are particularly eye-catching among the hotels in Dakali that are full of prostitution, gambling, and drugs. However, after Hebupa and Hebangxiong took over most of the industries, although gambling and prostitution remained unchanged, they also began to clean up the toxins that had penetrated the city's bones based on their experience in Mengka and Mengbin. A large number of drug dealers and traffickers were arrested, and the coalition forces even clashed with the Xian Long troops from Huaizai and sank several ships on the Mekong River in front of everyone. It can be said that the determination to fight drugs was fully exerted. For those who were accustomed to the order of the city under Zhao Zhaoyang's rule, they had no idea why the coalition forces did this. Because according to their thinking, this is simply cutting off their own financial resources. Of course, this is also true. Once the drug trade was cut off, the coalition's income dropped by 20%. If it were someone else, they would probably be furious. What's more, the coalition forces are also facing the backlash of the old order. There is no telling how many people in this city rely on the drug trade for a living. If their livelihood is cut off, people will start causing trouble one after another. But Hebupa and Hebangxiong are no longer ordinary people. They got the promise from Hua State and the Dongfeng Corps, or Dongfeng Group. So indirectly, they also got the promise from the north. The pie is bigger than ever before, so big that it can brainwash people. Therefore, their response to such dynamics is only one unwavering strategy: kill until the enemy is defeated. Anyway, there is no force in the entire Pubei that is capable of taking down Dakali, so they really act without any scruples. In general, Dakali is still too urbanized. Under such operations, the crematorium in Dakali was running at full power, and the black smoke from the crematorium continued all day long. Even Chen Chen felt a little scared when he saw it. Standing on the balcony of the villa, Chen Chen sighed deeply, and then said to Xiaoyu beside him, "At this rate, the coalition forces can only hold out for a year or 2 at best. We have to find a way to solve the problem of economic sources as soon as possible. Otherwise, it won't be long before the city returns to its original state, and all the efforts we have made to build it up will be in vain." The drug problem is not just a drug problem. Drugs are the source of chaos. With the drug gone, many interest alliances and geopolitical disputes that rely on the drug will also disappear. But if it reappears after a period of vacuum, I'm afraid few people will be able to withstand the impact it causes. By then, the base I have built here with great difficulty will be destroyed once again. No one is a saint. The coalition has already paid enough tribute. What about you? What are you going to do? Hearing Chen Chen's words, Xiaoyu nodded calmly, and then said, "I'm already thinking of a solution, but distant water cannot quench immediate thirst, and Dakali can't wait for a policy that takes too long to take effect. You have to find a way for the coalition forces to make money in the short term so that they can get through this most difficult period of transformation. Starting next year, a dedicated trade route will be opened, and Myanmar will also take new actions. After these steps are completed, Dakali will be able to truly settle down. But how to make money in the short term? Do you have any ideas?" "Yes, I have," Chen Chen answered without hesitation. "Give a signal to the Laotians to clear the way so that the coalition forces can kill Xian Guanlong. Xian Guanlong has taken over many things from Nuakong, including several jade processing factories and a large amount of jadeite spot goods. His money is enough to sustain Dakali for a long time." "How is it? Can you do it?" Don't tell me. It's really possible." Xiaoyu nodded thoughtfully, and then said, "The biggest difficulty for us in conducting joint operations is that we cannot get the support of local armed forces, because in the past, local armed forces have always sided with the drug traffickers. Now, if there is real support from local armed forces, we need to consider the international impact, but Ho Bang Sung does not. This is really doable. However, this cannot be an official operation. What I mean is that if the coalition forces send an elite team to rush over and kill Xin Wenlong, rob the goods in return, Laos would not say anything. We don't even need to say hello. The central government of Laos wants Xian Wenlong dead, and they would be even happier if they could kill a few of their corrupt officers at the same time. Do you get me?" "I see." Chen Chen answered immediately, and after seeing his expression, Xiaoyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "So you've been laying the groundwork for this for so long? Just to talk about this?" "That's right." Chen Chen continued with a thick face. The future development of Dakali is a very complicated matter. It depends on you, the Bao family, the coalition forces, and the Myanmar side to discuss. I can't control it, and I don't want to control it. But I've been eyeing Xian Ruanlong, this piece of fat meat, for a long time. It was out of reach before, but now that he's here, I can't go to Indonesia without worrying if I don't get rid of him. What do you call this? If you don't take what God gives you, you will suffer the consequences. Now that you have no objection, I will tell you. You're going to go there in person? Xiaoyu interrupted Chen Chen and asked, Me? Fuck you. Porcelain should not touch tiles. Xian Ruanlong is no longer worthy of my personal efforts. I will help the coalition forces make plans and prepare equipment. Then I'll sit here and wait for the money to be divided. Even though I may not get much, I still feel good to be able to earn money without having to go to the battlefield. Yes, the idea is already very advanced. Xiaoyu nodded with satisfaction, and the two smiled at each other. Everything was said without words. Xian Ruanlong, who was far away in Huixai, didn't know that the sunken ship that once stood in front of him had decided his life or death with just a few words. After getting Xiaoyu's confirmation, the strategy to attack Xian Ruanlong became a natural thing. In fact, just as Chen Chen said to Xiaoyu, he had been thinking about taking action against Xian Ruanlong for a long time, and he had been holding it in for a long time. The reason is very simple. If Xian Ruanlong continues to develop, he will definitely become a major threat to the Dongfeng Corps. This does not mean that the Xian Ruanlong group itself can pose any threat to the Dongfeng Corps, because no matter how big it is or how many people it is ultimately just a drug dealer. He could not have a large-scale armored force, mature artillery, or strong air defense force. In this situation, even without the intervention of the coalition forces, it would be very easy for the Dongfeng Corps to defeat the Xian Guanlong armed group. However, what Chen Chen is really worried about is not the threat of force, but the changes that this group will bring to the entire Golden Triangle ecosystem after the cancer has taken root. In the previous life, after taking over Kansa's legacy, the Xian Guanlong group quickly grew bigger and stronger, accumulated a lot of wealth by relying on the drug trade, and expanded its industries to jade, minerals, tourism, entertainment, fraud, and other fields, and established a huge business empire in the Golden Triangle. At its peak, the group's total annual revenue exceeded $20 billion, making it the de facto largest legal criminal gang. Under the leadership of this group, the entire Golden Triangle is moving step by step towards an abyss of hell from which there is no escape. Bad money is driving out good money, long-term, slow, and healthy industries are unable to develop, and the people are kidnapped by illegal and criminal industries and forced to participate in this huge chain of interests. According to Chen Chen's memory, Xian Ruanlong did indeed do this. Even 10 years later, he had become the Reborn Kansai Empire. Development has reached this point, and it can be said that the poison has penetrated into the bone marrow. If Dongfeng Group wants to make any move here, it will have to become an enemy of the broad mass base. This obviously does not meet Dongfeng Group's demand for continued development. Therefore, Xian Ruanlong must die, and the sooner the better. To achieve this goal, the coalition forces must attack with all their might after a great victory. Chen Chen easily persuaded He Bupa and He Bongxiong to take action. Just as he had talked to Xiaoyu, the coalition forces really needed some quick money, and Xian Ruanlong happened to be the fattest sheep around. Of course, it is not that easy to slaughter the sheep. Equipment, personnel, plans, intelligence, everything must be in place. Since the Dongfeng Corps will not be directly involved this time, without elite combat support, how to ensure the smooth progress of the combat operations and how to ensure the quick and effective finishing work is also a huge challenge for Chen Chen. But on the other hand, this is also an excellent opportunity to practice. It is impossible for Chen Chen to always be on the front line. As the company grows bigger, he will inevitably have to take on the responsibility of taking charge of the overall situation. Most of the time, he will be giving remote commands like he is doing now. Therefore, he must cherish this opportunity. On the first day of December 2010, Chen Chen launched the first combat preparation meeting. This time, the format of the meeting was different from previous ones, because those participating in the meeting included not only the core members of the Dongfeng Corps, but also the two commanders of the coalition forces, two logistics personnel Peng Shuqing and Su Yu, as well as intelligence and public relations support personnel such as Jiang He and Bao Xiaomei. Sitting in the temporary command center set up in Dakali Villa, Chen Chen pointed to the intelligence that had been sorted out on the whiteboard and said to the people in the audience, Therefore, based on the previous intelligence clues, the goal of our combat operation this time is basically clear. Unlike Nakam, Xian Guanlong has completed a considerable degree of transformation in recent years. He has established legal companies and achieved centralized management. This led to a result that he absolutely could not avoid, which was that his base became increasingly smaller and concentrated in the Huixai area. According to the open-source intelligence Jiang he has obtained, the resources and funds concentrated in Huixai by Zhuanrunlong Group should have reached more than 80% of the entire group's resources. These resources include jade, minerals, cash, real estate, etc. And our goal is to snatch these things from their hands. But we can't just rob without caring about anything. To put it bluntly, we have to be cautious. We must completely eradicate Xian Guanlong's power just like we did with Dakali, while ensuring that most industries and resources are not damaged. Then, based on this principle, our combat objectives can be broken down into the following 2 points. First, we must decapitate Xian Guanlong and eliminate him and most of the senior members of the Guanlong group. Second, we need to take over the trade routes, supply chains, and other industries he has established and generate stable income. Only on the basis of these 2 goals can we effectively carry out combat planning. So, now can anyone tell me how we should fight? Chen Chen intentionally set up a question here. He certainly didn't want to start a teaching war, but simply saw that everyone was already drowsy from listening, so he wanted to wake them up. After hearing his question, He Bangxiong, who was in the best spirits and most eager to improve, raised his hand first. Can I briefly tell you what I think? You say. After getting Chen Chen's permission, He Bangxiong immediately stood up and said, let's go back to the most basic issue. That is, be careful about what you do. We dare not start a war on Laotian territory, as this will not help us separate Xian Wenlong from the official forces of Laos. At the same time, if too many jars and pots are broken, it will not be conducive for us to recycle them. So based on this, I think we still have to fight quickly, exert pressure, and force most of the Wenlong group to surrender. To achieve this, we must learn from the experience of previous battles and show our momentum and fight well in the first battle. With soldiers approaching and dark clouds covering the city, this is the best option. The Huizai Park in Xian Wenlong is very large and is also the hub of the entire Wenlong group. Our first battle will be against the Wishai Park. After the battle, don't give him time to react or a chance to escape. Immediately use the intelligence we can get from the Wishai Park to clean up the surrounding forces. We don't need to clean up 100%. After cleaning up 50%, we can control the overall situation. Very good. Chen Chen nodded approvingly, then looked at the others and asked, any other opinions? At this time, He Bupo on the side also raised his hand. Let me add one more thing about the beheading. Since we had some conflicts with Xian Ruanlong in the early stage, he is now quite cautious. It is unlikely that we can directly behead him, but I think we can lure him out through negotiation and behead him at the negotiation table. After all, Xian Ruanlong and Nuakong are different. Nuakong is just a big drug dealer and he can't talk to anyone. But Xian Wenlong has a jade processing factory, a mine, and a fleet. His legitimate business accounts for a large proportion. He has talks with everyone. As long as there is something to talk about, we will definitely be willing to talk. We should not show that we want to kill him, but pretend to share the profits with him. He will definitely be willing to contact us. Can. Chen Chen nodded again, but Sure Dakai beside him raised his hand again. We can't put all our hopes on negotiations. If he doesn't fall for it, we have to have a contingency plan. Jiang he has to go to Wishai to establish an intelligence source. It would be best if we could find Xian Ruanlong. That's right. Hearing his words, Jiang he also echoed him. I will be leaving for Huaizai tomorrow and expect to get more detailed information within a week. Okay, what about the equipment? Any ideas? He Bangxiong scratched his head and replied, we will mainly attack by water this time, so heavy artillery will definitely not be used. We should use rockets. We still have more than 5,000 rockets, which is enough to take them down. Moreover, rockets have a stronger deterrent effect and are more in line with our combat objectives. That means we need to get a fleet and complete the transformation in a short period of time. Brother Chen, what do you think? Among all the people present now, only Chen Chen has a large number of ships. This point shows how smart Chen Chen was at that time. There are waterways all around Dakali. Without boats, what can you do? Chen Chen looked at Peng Shuqing and asked, how many boats do we have? There are 12 cargo ships in total, all of which are over 100 tons, and there are also a large number of small ships, about 40 in number. However, we need at least 9 cargo ships and 20 small boats to maintain the basic operation of the trade and logistics companies. Therefore, we can only use 3 large cargo ships and 20 small boats. Is that enough? Chen Chen asked Ibanxiao. The 505th Brigade also has several armed cargo ships and 2 assault boats, which is basically enough. We will also allocate our assault boats and helicopters to you as equipment investment. That's enough. Ibanxiao slapped his thigh and said, if you can't defeat Xian Ruanlong with this equipment, I'll bring my head to you. Don't be so confident. How hard is it to kill someone? The main thing is to cut off Xian Ruanlong's foundation. Understood. So, should we discuss the specific battle plan now? Can. Thus, the meeting officially entered into the discussion phase of specific operational plans. How many people are needed, how to group the personnel, how to arrange the command level, the direction of attack, the main attack and assisting teams, and the selection of special operations personnel. Every detail is taken into consideration. I have to say, although he had never eaten pork after seeing many pigs running, he had basically grasped the essence of the Dongfeng Corps' combat. Although it may seem clumsy and even absurd to learn it now, it is a good start after all. Chen Chen was very satisfied with this. He did not want to train the coalition forces to become his rival, nor did he want to raise a tiger to cause trouble. However, if the generation gap in tactics and equipment can be absolutely guaranteed, then the stronger the ally, the better. At the same time, in Huizai, in the Ruanlong Group Park, Xian Ruanlong sat in the spacious office, looking at the information sent by his subordinates, and said with emotion, it's true that when you've been away for 3 days, you should look at him with new eyes. When I saw him a year ago, I thought he was just a brat who was relying on the power of others to bully others. Even if there is a shadow from the north behind us, we are actually just helping them with some temporary tasks and running errands. I didn't expect that after a year, they have developed to this extent. King Tong has been taken, Tachalik has been taken, and the connection with Hua State has been established. Now the 7th Brigade and the 756th Brigade are following his lead. That's amazing. Fortunately, I didn't mess with them. Hearing his words, the adjutant beside him nodded in agreement and replied, we still have a bond of friendship. When they first came to Wishai to get their things, I personally sent them to the other side. Of course, it was also your wise decision, boss. No need to be modest. You are still very steady in your actions. Xian Ruanlong waved his hand and continued. If it were someone else, they would have started fighting when the convoy was stopped. The phone call you made to me was crucial. If it weren't for that call, I wouldn't be able to sit here and chat with you calmly now. You were sensible. I know there have been a lot of rumors recently, mainly about those ships. But don't worry about it. It's not your problem. We just didn't understand the situation. After hearing Xian Ruanlong's words, the adjutant felt relieved. He was originally worried about the loss of several cargo ships, but now it seems that his boss is indeed not a narrow-minded person. Yes, if the vision is not big, how can the group be run to such a situation? Thinking of this, he asked. Then the boss means that we won't pursue those ships, right? Not only will we not pursue the matter, I think we should also make a statement to Tachalike. The people in Tachalike have obviously boarded the northern boats. They don't want to see drugs in Tachalike, so we won't do business with them. Let's just treat this as a misunderstanding and keep our distance from each other in the future, boss. What do you say? How else can you say you were smart? Xian Ruanlong nodded with satisfaction, and then said, well, you find someone to lead the team and go over there to pull strings. It would be best if you could go and meet them in person. Talk to them, clear up any misunderstandings, and set the rules. We should admit our mistakes if necessary, and pay fines if necessary. In short, we should not let them point the finger at us. Clear. The adjutant answered solemnly, then asked, should I go there myself? Forget it. Xian Ruanlong waved his hand and replied, there are still risks in this trip, mainly the possibility of a shipwreck. He does things too simply and crudely, and communication is difficult. That subordinate of Nuakong, Wang Mia, was killed by them. You'd better be cautious and pay attention to safety. Arrange someone else to go, and you can command remotely. Okay, I'll do it. After saying this, the adjutant turned and left. Xian Ruanlong stayed in the office, tapping the table in deep thought. He felt that his solution was quite safe. In other words, the desire to survive is maxed out. This time, the Dongfeng Corps should not target me again, right? After all, I'm just an honest businessman. The plan against Hui Zai was proceeding step by step. Chen Chen expected that within 2 weeks, the coalition forces would be able to cross the Mekong River in a large scale, advance along the Laos-Thailand border, and launch a surprise attack on the Nguyen Long Industrial Park in Hui Zai. Everything went smoothly, but what no one expected was that at this tense and sensitive time, Xian Ruanlong actually sent someone over. The person who came was an important figure from the Ruanlong group, or rather, an important figure as they claimed. The man's name was Chun Yuhu, claiming to be Xian Ruanlong's cousin. He brought a whole ship full of various gifts and entered Dakali through the Golden Triangle Park port through formal procedures. As soon as the goods arrived at the port, he contacted He Bupa through various connections, and through He Bupa, he contacted He Bongxiong and Chen Chen. His meaning was very clear. That is, he wanted to apologize for what had happened before and hoped to sit down and have a good talk with the coalition forces to determine the new order in Dakali. Those ships weren't really ours. They were just used by bad guys. We didn't even know that there were horse drugs on our ship. I came here this time on behalf of our boss to apologize to the superiors. It is our lax management that has led to this problem. The boss should punish those who deserve it and beat those who deserve it, but we still have to do business in the future. Our jade and minerals still have to come from Sanfu. I hope the senior officials will be magnanimous and not bother with small businessmen like us. The guards under He Bupa relayed Chun Yuhu's words, and it must be said that his words really put him in a very low profile. However, this could not change the minds of the 3 people sitting in the office listening to the report and wanted to kill his boss. The 3 of them didn't even consider the question of forgiving Xian Ruanlong, but were discussing the authenticity of Chun Yuhu's identity. So this Chun Yuhu is really Xian Ruanlong's cousin? Why do they have the same surname? He Bongxiong asked. Xian Ruanlong's real name is Chen Yulong. He is originally from Hunan. If he really has a cousin, it would be quite normal to call him Chen Yuhu. However, he took the initiative to send this person here and told us his name, which seems abnormal. I think this is more of a test of how well we know him. Look, if I wasn't here, you wouldn't know Xian Ruanlong's name is Chen Yulong, right? If you don't know, it means that your investigation into him has not yet begun. Relatively speaking, his situation is much safer. But if you have obtained this relatively confidential information, then it is obvious that you are going to take action against him. After hearing Chen Chen's words, the 2 nodded thoughtfully, and then He Bupa said, that means we can't show that we know him now. We have to keep pretending, keep them steady, and buy time for our actions. That's right. Chen Chen nodded slightly, frowned, and thought for a moment before continuing. But the current situation is more troublesome than we originally thought. Xian Ruanlong has already been alert, and his spies in the city should also be paying attention to our every move. The drug dealer's intelligence network is no joke. If we show any abnormality, they will definitely notice it. We can still fight them when the time comes, but it won't be that easy to uproot them. So, we not only have to pretend, but we also have to pretend like this. What do you think? After the words were spoken, He Bupa and He Bongxiong fell silent at the same time. In fact, after they had made such a big move before, it was very difficult to make Xian Ruanlong relax his vigilance. The ban on drugs in Dakali has become a foregone conclusion. Unless Xian Ruanlong shows enough sincerity, there is no way he can believe that Dakali will continue to cooperate with him. What he expected was probably just a mind-interfering confrontation. In this situation, any slight disturbance would make him jump up. Chen Chen was not particularly good at this kind of conspiracy work, and for a moment he could not think of a good way to. However, although he was not good at it, He Bupa was quite good at it. After thinking for a few seconds, he said, we have to fight among ourselves. We are going to deploy troops on a large scale, and we are also going to purchase and upgrade a large amount of equipment. This move is too obvious. There has to be a reasonable reason for such an action. And now, no one in Pubei dares to touch us. The only reasonable reason is internal strife. We have to use a self-torture tactic. If we play this trick well, we can also solve the problem of the intelligence source that will be exposed. Hearing this, Chen Chen's eyes lit up. How do we play? Who will be Huangai? Ibupa smiled bitterly and replied. Who else could it be? It's just me. There are actually other forces in the city that can be used, but I don't feel comfortable using them, let alone you, Chief Chun. If they really cooperate with Xian Ruanlong, we will become pure clowns. As for Brother He's current situation, he will never defect no matter who defected. It is totally unreliable for him to be Huangai. So, let me do it. This scene can only be reasonable if I act it out. Ibupa's words revealed 3 parts of helplessness, 2 parts of grievance, and 5 parts of unwillingness. In fact, he was indeed a wavering party before, and even a fence-sitter at a certain stage. But after he actually participated in the coalition forces operations and captured Dakali with his insignificant military force in the entire Pubei and shared huge benefits, he could be said to be completely devoted to the coalition forces and the Dongfeng group. In terms of loyalty value, He Bangxiong's is 200%, while his is 120%. Although he did not reach the level of He Bangxiong, at least he had achieved de facto absolute loyalty. Unfortunately, in the eyes of most people, his loyalty is only 80%. This really drove Ho Bu Pa crazy. Why? How did I look disloyal? Let's not talk about those empty words or positive incentives like future, development, or benefits. Let's just talk about negative deterrence. I have fewer soldiers than He Bangxiong, and my sphere of influence is narrower than He Bangxiong. My hometown is right next to the Dongfeng Corps base, and I am pointed at by AH-2 heavy artillery all day long. How the hell dare I be disloyal? Is this the original sin that the shipwreck once mentioned? Just because I inherited Chen Min's team, do I have to inherit his original sin? Damn, Chen Min, you really deserve to die. It is okay that I have original sin in the north, but now I also have original sin in the Dongfeng Corps. Thinking of this, Ibupa couldn't help but sigh, and Chen Chen also found his expression a little funny. Indeed, no matter how much Ibupa did, everyone still remained a little wary of him. To be fair, I'm actually the same. But how can you wash away your original sins so easily? Keep fighting, keep doing it. Many things cannot be said verbally. They must be seen from the facts. So Chen Chen said, then I will leave this Huangai to you. Think about it more about how to deal with it. Remember, handle it smoothly and naturally, and don't let him see any flaws. We would rather not have any contact than reveal any flaws. Because once there is a flaw, no matter how hard you try to fix it, it will never work. Clear. Ibupa nodded immediately, and then began to talk about his own plan. 2 days later, in the villa of the Dongfeng Corps. For the first time in his life, Chen Chen put on a suit and tie, ready to participate in a serious business meeting. Xiaoyu stood aside and watched him put on his clothes in a slightly clumsy manner. She naturally walked behind him to help him lift up his suit and said, stretch out your hand. Chen Chen opened his hands blankly. Xiaoyu patted his shoulder helplessly and corrected him. Stretch your hands back and down. When you put on a suit, you should lift it up from the bottom, not put it on from the top like you put on a bulletproof vest. Hearing her words, Chen Chen lowered his arms obediently, and sure enough, this time he put on his coat smoothly. That's so you intelligence officers also need to learn this kind of stuff? We also have social needs, brother. Etiquette classes are a very important part of the courses we study, because you may need to play a high-end role and participate in high-class social activities. You are totally unqualified. If you were in a banquet hall right now, your actions just now would have exposed your true colors. All right, Chen Chen shrugged and continued. Anyway, this is not something I need to do. As you said, in my mission scenarios, I still need to wear a bulletproof vest most of the time. So, do you want to wear it this time? Xiaoyu asked suddenly. Do you think Xian Ruanlong wants to kill me? It's not impossible. Drug dealers are all crazy. Even if they look normal on the surface, they are crazy inside. It shouldn't be the case. Xian Ruanlong's Ruanlong group is undergoing transformation. At this critical juncture, he can't do such a stupid thing. Besides, this time we are on our territory, the security is very tight, so even if he wants to kill me, he won't be able to do it. Xiaoyu frowned and nodded. She was obviously still worried, but from many perspectives, Chen Chen's operation this time was indeed not suitable for wearing a bulletproof vest. After all, excessive vigilance can also arouse suspicion from others, making it impossible to achieve the goal of the entire operation. We still have to take the necessary risks. This is much safer than charging into battle. Thinking of this, Xiaoyu said, pay attention to your position. Stay away from the door and the window. Never turn your back to the window. Also, I know. How can I not know this? Chen Chen interrupted Xiaoyu, reached out to take the FN-57 and put it into the holster under his armpit. Don't worry, I'm just going over there for the formality. The real show will be performed by Ibupa. We are transported back and forth by armored vehicles, so the possibility of problems is very small. You broke into the Pamon camp and Nuakong's territory by yourself to get information, and now you are worrying about me. Shut up, the little fish said unhappily. Before I actually go out on a mission, my family will talk more than I do. This is to be responsible for the safety of the operatives. The loss of any operative is a result we don't want to see, let alone you. Understood. I will protect myself. After saying that, Chen Chen turned and walked towards the door, boarded the raider that had been waiting there, and headed to the hotel where the meeting was scheduled. The car drove for 10 minutes, and Chen Chen walked into the hotel gate under the cover of his many security guards. Then, led by Ibupa himself, he walked into a specially set up box on the second floor. He Bangxiong was already waiting inside, and next to him was the protagonist of this meeting, Chen Yuhu. As soon as he saw him, Chen Yuhu immediately stood up, walked up to him, and stretched out his hand impatiently. At this time, Li Bang and Bao Qi once again found the feeling they had when they first arrived in Munka, and like two door gods, they ruthlessly blocked Chen Yuhu outside. Stay away! Li Bang was wearing heavy armor all over his body, which was very oppressive. coupled with his deep and fierce voice and the movement of reaching for the gun. Chen Yuhu was almost scared to death. He took 2 steps back and subconsciously looked at He Bangxiong with a pleading look. He Bangxiong remained unmoved, and He Bupa took the opportunity to step forward and try to smooth things over. Don't worry. Commander Chen, this is Chen Yuhu. Yeah, I see. Chen Chen replied coldly. He didn't need to act at all, because he really didn't have the slightest affection for Chen Yuhu. After receiving his answer, Chen Yuhu was as if he had been pardoned. He helped Chen Chen pull out the stool and said with a smile, Sir, I am rude. I will drink 2 glasses of wine as punishment later. Chen Chen shook his head noncommittally, turned around and found a seat far away and facing the door and window as Xiu Yu said, then waved his hand and said, let's have dinner. Okay, sir. He Bupa turned around and gave instructions to his adjutant, and soon, the dishes that had been prepared long ago were brought up one by one. In fact, no substantive content is discussed at many dinner parties, because as long as a dinner party can be organized, the attitudes and words of everyone at the table can tell a lot. Maybe everyone was just chatting about women, fine wine, and the pretty good fish on the table, but deep down, they were still talking about business. For example, if the boss of the dinner party says, the fish has not been touched, you can pack it up and take it back, then what you want is basically settled. And if the boss said, bring up a different bottle of wine, even if it wasn't ruined on the spot, at least most of it would be gone. However, throughout the entire dinner, Chen Chen did not show any biased attitude. He just didn't drink a drop of alcohol, ate quietly, and then said a few perfunctory words when someone took the initiative to talk to him, because he knew that he was just a mascot today and didn't need to do anything extra. After eating and drinking, all we had to do was wait for the show to start. After more than an hour of eating, the characters who were supposed to perform finally came on stage. He Bupa's adjutant knocked on the door and came in, whispering a few words in He Bupa's ear. He Bupa frowned, but soon relaxed his brows. He sent his adjutant away, as if he wanted to put aside the matter that no one else had heard for the time being. However, He Bangxiong on the side kept asking questions half-jokingly. Brother He, what's going on? Are you still going to do this behind our backs? He Bupa laughed and replied, nothing serious, just some small-time guy causing trouble. Come on, have a drink, don't worry about it. Trouble? In the hotel or somewhere else? What's going on? He Bangxiong's eyes changed. At this moment, even Chen Chen couldn't help but applaud his acting skills. Down in the hotel. What's the matter? You don't have to hide it from me, right? Having said that, He Bupa could no longer hide it. He sighed and replied, someone is selling horse medicine again. I have asked my men to deal with it. Oh, I see. He Bangxiong slowly put down his wine glass and continued to ask, how did you deal with it? Do you want my help? At this moment, an ordinary dinner party was filled with undercurrents. Chen Yuhu witnessed the whole process, and a hint of subtle joy flashed in his eyes. So what is the most important thing in acting? No, of course it is not about being perfect in every aspect, because no matter how realistic your acting is, as long as someone looks carefully, they will always find flaws. In fact, what is really important is to act less. It is necessary to stop at the right point, to hide, rather than reveal. Only in this way can the audience imagine what they want to see and find reasonable reasons for all unreasonable things. So, He Bupa's plan is actually the same. He arranged a common and reasonable background story, let his adjutant bring out this story, and then used He Bangxiong's inquiry to implicitly express the conflict between him and He Bangxiong over command power. But at this point, he did not intend to continue acting. So, after He Bangxiong asked, do you need help? He Bupa immediately turned his gaze to Chen Chen, and after a casual glance, he answered, no, I'll take care of it. That's a small matter. Let's eat first today. Chen Chen nodded silently, and the sudden situation was ignored. Everyone started eating again. After eating and drinking, Chen Yu finally lost his patience and started talking about the main topic. He wanted to establish a relationship with Chen Chen, using his identity as a Hunan native, but Chen Chen ignored him from beginning to end. Only when he mentioned Xian Ruanlong would he become interested and say a few words to him. Chen Yu obviously also saw Chen Chen's movements. He began to deliberately avoid talking about Xian Ruanlong's specific situation. Chen Chen did not ask any further questions and was in a completely nonchalant state. That we heard that Dongfeng Group is also going to start foreign trade business. We will have to rely on Chief Chen for food in the future. We have a large amount of jade and sapphire transported by the Nguyen Group through the Mekong River. At the same time, we are also mining in the Jinghong Huaishai mining belt. We have obtained the mining rights from the government, and our output will increase in the future. The Kunyu section of our Laos Railway has started construction. After it is built to Vientiane, transportation will be more convenient. But before the railway is built, we still have to rely mainly on waterways. The Ruanlong Group also wants to contribute to the railway. Commander Chen, we still need your care. Well, it's good to want to do things. Chen Chen nodded without comment. Chen Yu naturally knew that he was being perfunctory, but this was exactly the result he wanted. Nonsense, if Chen Chen really showed enthusiasm, then he would be screwed. Everyone knows that the status is the most important thing when doing things in the north. If you don't have an identity that they can trust, it would be harder than climbing to the sky to make a living under them. A political review alone would cost you your life, let alone a gang like the Ruanlong Group that has a real criminal record. Therefore, it is normal to be perfunctory. The more perfunctory one is, the more it shows that one doesn't care. And the more one doesn't care, the safer the Ruanlong Group will be. Chen Yu showed no disappointment at all. He just nodded eagerly, acting as if he was really happy. Then he took out a bag from under his feet and looked at He Bupa. After He Bupa nodded, he took out the things in the bag. Commander Chen, this is a small token of our appreciation. It's not expensive, just some local specialties and also our company's own products. If you don't mind, please help me take a look at it. Chen Chen hummed and motioned for Chun Yuhu to open the bag. The latter stood up attentively and took out the items in the bag one by one across the table. An icy green piece and safety pendant, a flawless sapphire, and a large gold bar. Worth? Probably around a few $1,000,000. It is really not expensive to Chen Chen now. It is really a local specialty. This also shows that Xian Ruanlong is indeed very sensible and cautious in doing things. I don't know what Commander Chen likes. I prepared these for now. The other us, no. Chen Chen interrupted him and then said, don't send anything else. I'm full, let's chat. He Bongxiong, you take care of the guests. I'm leaving first. Clear. He Bongxiong stood up immediately, and this was another small detail that the three of them had already discussed. It was clearly He Bupa's arrangement, but Chen Chen subconsciously asked He Bongxiong to greet the guests. Any experienced person in any social occasion could tell who was more important between He Bupa and He Bongxiong. Commander Chun, should I ask Brigade Commander He to send that thing back to you? Or should I give it directly to Chief He? As soon as the words fell, everyone's eyes turned to Chen Yuhu at the same time. He said the wrong thing, but he did it on purpose. This is not for Chief Ho. It's for Brigade Commander Ho Bupa. I understand. This mouth of mine. Chen Yuhu kept slapping himself symbolically from behind, while Chen Chen simply pushed the door and walked out. It wasn't until he got on the Predator that he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Damn it, the show is finally over. Not bad, Captain. Sure, Dakai said with a smile. I'm just a minor character. I don't have much to do in the show. Now it's up to He Bupa to take over. The car drove all the way towards the villa, and at this time, the undercurrent dinner was still going on. A few hours later, in the Wanfeng Hotel suite, Chen Yuhu carefully checked every corner of the room, and after making sure there were no listening or surveillance devices, he picked up his cell phone and went into the bathroom. He turned on the water in the bathroom to the maximum, then huddled in the small bathroom and called Xian Ruanlong's adjutant. When the call was connected, he immediately said, "Boss, I figured it out." No, they didn't agree to cooperate. I should say that their attitude was very bad and indifferent. But I found that they have some problems internally. He Bupa and He Bongxiong are not on good terms, and the wreck clearly favors He Bongxiong. Yes, it must be true. The crux of their discord is the issue of drug prohibition. He Bupa is in charge of the police camp. He is responsible for the city's public security. He Bongxiong's methods are too cruel. He killed Dakali and made everyone in the city restless. They've already had a disagreement. We had dinner at the hotel today. Ho Bupa's people caught the drug dealer, but it was obvious that he didn't want Ho Bangxiong to know. Yes, they're just like each other in appearance but not in spirit. Yes, I know it's a bit too coincidental, but I went to inquire right after I got down, and I found out that several people were shot near the Wanfeng Hotel today. He Bupa probably didn't want to kill him, but he had to do it in front of the sinking ship. This is an opportunity. As long as he is not a doomed person like He Bongxiong and Chen Chuan, there will definitely be a flaw. I think we have to start with Ho Bupa. He will cooperate with us. Understood. I will think about it carefully. With a click, the phone was hung up. A relieved smile also appeared on Chen Yuhu's face. I am really too smart. Smart and sharp. What do you call this? This is called details determine success or failure. Grasping this detail may bring huge opportunities to the Ruanlong group. Check and balance Dakali? No. If Dakali can be conquered from the inside, it will all belong to the Chen family. You have conquered this country, so why can't I? Chen Yuhu, sit on it? He Bupa's plan could be said to be going extremely smoothly. On the afternoon of the second day after the dinner, Chen Yuhu had already taken action. According to He Bupa's report, Chen Yuhu left the contact information of both He Bupa and He Bongxiong, made the same phone calls to both of them, and said almost the same thing. The reason why I said almost is because in the conversation with He Bupa, Chen Yuhu pretended to inadvertently reveal an additional piece of information. That is, he will stay in Dakali for a period of time to investigate possible directions for subsequent cooperation. Logically speaking, this really seems like an insignificant compliment. But if this sentence was said to only one person, the effect would be completely different. And sure enough, after He Bupa expressed his interest in a very subtle way, Chen Yuhu took the bait on the spot. He made an appointment to meet He Bupa alone, and the appointment was made in He Bupa's own hotel, the Beitong Hotel that he had just taken over from Zhao Jiaoyang. These two were like a pair of adulterers who were having an affair behind their master's back. They seduced and hinted at each other, and finally agreed on a meeting place, ready to find a place where no one knew to have a good hookup. But unfortunately, this is not a mutually immoral relationship, but one party is fishing deliberately and the other party is taking the bait without any preparation. At best, it was just a trap. He Bupa set the time at 2 o'clock in the morning, calling it busy official duties. In order to make the play more realistic, he also specifically instructed Chen Yuhu to call He Bongxiong and make an appointment with He Bongxiong. If Chen Yuhu really hit him, He Bongxiong would definitely find a reason to refuse. If Chen Yuhu didn't fight, it means that this guy is even dumber than the fisherman expected. As a result, Chen Yuhu did not call He Bongxiong. The plan went more smoothly than expected. Everyone thought that in order to make the people from Ruanlong group take the bait, they had to go through a series of steps such as making nests, hanging baits, casting rods, and reeling in lines. But unexpectedly, He Bupa fell down by the water and accidentally threw the empty hook into the water, and the fish in the water automatically bit it. It went so smoothly that I was a little suspicious whether they were playing a trick on me. In the living room of the villa, Chen Chen looked at Xiaoyu opposite him, scratched his head, and said, "It was indeed a bit too smooth, but if it wasn't smooth, it would really be questionable." The power of inertia is very strong. In Pubei, poison has existed for nearly 100 years, and the rules here have long been deeply rooted. No matter how many owners they changed, no matter who was in charge, they were basically unable to completely cut ties with the drug trade. including Peng Jiaxing and Bao Youxiang back then. Do you think they didn't want to ban drugs? There was no way they couldn't ban it. The situation of the coalition forces is the same now. From the perspective of outsiders, no matter how strong your Dongfeng core is, it doesn't matter. Even if you make your background in the north known, it is impossible to change this order that is harder than cement. Therefore, Chen Yuhu's judgment is very accurate. It should be said that it is very accurate within his limited information channels. Do you know what really made things go in another direction? After hearing Xiaoyu's words, Chen Chen thought for a moment and replied, "Railway, pagan railway." That's right. Xiaoyu nodded approvingly and continued. This is something that can truly change the landscape of this land. The Bao family has realized this, and the coalition forces also know this, but no one knows this except you. So, they still think that drug trade is the most profitable business. They could never have imagined that if the Bao family could really push for the completion of the pagan railway, and even open up the line from Daluo and Mongla to Kayakpio port, what level of benefits would be brought about? 1 trillion? That's still too little. This thing looks like just a railway line in Southeast Asia, but what is its real significance? I don't need to explain it, right? Chen Chen said, took a deep breath and said, in essence, this is still part of the confrontation with the Americans. So, its implicit value may be several times, or even dozens of times greater than its explicit commercial value, right? That's not something I can discuss with you. Xiaoyu spread his hands and ended the topic directly. However, after chatting with her for a few sentences, Chen Chen felt relieved. People involved in the matter are often confused. When you think everything is going well, it is best to find a third party to take a look and evaluate. And now, since Xiaoyu thinks there is no problem, there is a high probability that there is really no problem. Next, just do things step by step, and then wait quietly for the results. So, Chen Chen stood up from the sofa decisively and said, then let them do it. I'll do my own thing. Help me contact Mr. Chuan and ask him to come over. We are about to start adaptive training. I hope he can get familiar with our people in advance and be well prepared. No problem. The little fish answered immediately. Without any delay, she immediately went aside and contacted Ping Chuan in her own way. At this time, the team members who planned to participate in the so-called Qingshan plan and go to Indonesia had also arrived, of course excluding Sang Yi. His injuries were not actually too serious. Most people believe that any cut in the throat was a serious injury. But in fact, if the throat cutting does not injure the artery and only cuts the larynx, the problem is not too big. Such injuries may cause symptoms such as emphysema, dyspnea, dysphagia, shock, etc., but as long as the bleeding can be stopped and the wound can be cleaned and sutured in time, the prognosis is generally good. Sang Yi was almost full of energy a week after being sent to the hospital, but his wounds had not healed yet, and talking and eating were big problems, so Chen Chen was too lazy to let him suffer. Thus, he once again missed the opportunity to make progress, and Chen Chen finally knew what he wanted to say on the helicopter. What he wanted to say at that time was remember to wear a neck guard, because he saw that the neck guard on Chen Chen's bulletproof vest had been torn off. However, Chen Chen was fine, but he got into trouble because he didn't wear a neck guard. Who can you complain to about this? Maybe he was just unlucky. Not too unlucky after all, he was still alive. In short, he couldn't go to Indonesia, so it was just right to leave him with Bai Go as a helper. Half an hour later, Ping Chuan arrived at the villa. A group of 12 people stood at the door of the villa to greet him. When Ping Chuan, still wearing sunglasses and with a bald head, appeared in front of everyone, something unexpected happened to everyone. Fuck Master Chuan, someone in the team shouted, and Chen Chen turned around and saw that it was Bao Qi. Ah, you two know each other? Chen Chen spoke in confusion, and Ping Chuan, who had just walked into the living room, also looked confused. Do you know me? I know him. Uncle Chuan, in 1996, I was only 6 years old. You knew my dad, have you forgotten? Boken? In 1996, when you came from Bangkok to Lao Kai, it was my father who received you. You said at the time that you knew my father. I didn't ask for the details, but do you still remember? I broke my arm on the first day you went there, and you straightened the bone for me. I will remember your technique for the rest of my life. After hearing Bao Qi's narration, Chen Chen couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Indeed, Bao Qi's father, Bao Yucheng, was also a man with quite rich experience. He worked in MG and the National Democratic Front in Hua State. Later, he went to Kokong and joined the Allied forces. Finally, he followed his son to the Dongfeng Corps. Given this experience, it is unlikely that he would get to know Ping Chuan, but it is also quite reasonable. After Bao Qi's reminder, Ping Chuan finally remembered his old friend. I see. Yocheng's son, right? How's he? Is he still alive? Well, I'm still alive and well in Mungka. That's good. We'll have a chance to meet. Ping Chuan didn't say much, but Chen Chen also noticed it. To Bao Qi's family, Ping Chuan is a friend and a distinguished guest, but to Ping Chuan, Bao Yucheng may be just a small passerby in his exciting life. There was a little bit of incense and friendship, but obviously not too much. Bao Qi naturally knew this, so he did not continue to try to get close to Ping Chuan, but smiled and agreed to a few things, and then returned to the team. Chen Chen walked up to Ping Chuan and introduced his teammates to him one by one. Compared with the extremely simple introduction made by Cheng Lei and the others, Ping Chuan's introduction was extremely professional. He not only asks about age, height, weight, physical strength, physical condition, and past injury history, he even touches and checks the body fat. Therefore, this introduction was prolonged. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Shi Dakai quietly approached Bao Qi and asked, "How do you know this person? I haven't heard you mention him before." Bao Qi shook his head and replied, "Don't mention it. I almost forgot about this person, but when I saw him coming today and saw his small round glasses, I remembered everything at once. I can't help it. The impression is so deep that I can't think of it normally. But now that I've seen it, I can't forget it. Is he good at it?" Shi Dakai asked subconsciously. I don't know if it was good or not, but for a 6-year-old like me at the time, it really hurt like hell. Bone setting is done by bending it with bare hands. Do you know how strong he was back then? He was much stronger than he is now. My hands were like 2 matchsticks in his hands. I was afraid that after he took my hands, he would crush my shoulders again. And I can't cry. If I cry, my dad will slap me in the face, as if I'm embarrassing him. Bao Qi shook his head with lingering fear, paused for a moment, and continued. However, Master Chuan's medical skills are truly beyond reproach. I remember my dad scolded me at that time, saying, even the bones that were broken by the mortar in the Palace of Hades can be reconnected by Chuan Yi. What are you doing? You know my dad. He rarely says anything too exaggerated. To be able to use such an analogy shows that Mr. Chuan is really capable. And it is said that he has been a military doctor all his life until now. What's your name? Before Bao Qi finished speaking, Ping Chuan had already turned to Shi Dakai. Hearing his question, Shi Dakai quickly replied, my name is Shi Dakai. I'm 30 years old, weigh 150 kilograms, and am 173 centimeters tall. I'm in good health. I was shot in the abdomen before, mainly in the intestines, but no major organs were injured. Did you cut it? Did you cut the intestines? No, I was wearing a bulletproof vest, so the internal injuries were not serious. That's fine, very standard. Ping Chuan pinched Shi Dakai's arm and asked a few questions about his medical history, allergies, and blood type. After writing them down one by one in his little notebook, he turned directly to Bao Qi, who was standing beside him. What about you? How are you doing? Bao Qi followed the same pattern as the others, focusing on the gunshot wound on his leg. Ping Chuan squatted down to help him roll up his trouser legs and check them. He nodded slightly and said, it's been handled pretty well, and it doesn't affect the functionality. How's your hand? Is it okay? Okay. Bao Qi opened his mouth to answer, and the two smiled at each other. The friendship that spanned their father's generations was continued here. After one round, Ping Chuan basically got a general idea of the situation of all the personnel and wrote them all down in his notebook. Then he led the team to the backyard of the villa and began to conduct a basic test on the team members. According to him, he needs to understand the details of each person's movements, behavioral habits, and bodily functions. For example, everyone's strong hands are different, and the strength of their strong hands is different, which will provide him with different judgment bases for subsequent injury treatment. What he has to do is not as simple as keeping the wounded alive, but to ensure their combat effectiveness as much as possible while keeping the wounded alive. Looking at the team members running and jumping hard in the backyard, and Ping Chuan concentrating and taking notes beside them, Chen Chen couldn't help but feel a little emotional. He glanced at Xiao Yu and said, you're right. People like us will definitely come to you on our own initiative. What is this? The gathering effect of idealism. That's about right. There are only a few lighthouses anyway. Xiao Yu frowned slightly, then quickly relaxed his brows and continued. Now the lighthouses in the world have gone out one after another. Ships that originally followed other lighthouses have to change their course. You see, Bao Qi's family is actually a typical example. He found the waterway that his father couldn't find. That's interesting, isn't it? It even feels epic in a way. The epic feeling is too exaggerated. Chen Chen smiled self-deprecatingly and said, we're still a long way from here. It's still a long way off now, but looking at it 10, 20, or 30 years from now, that may not be the case. So work hard, and do more great things while you are young. No problem. Chen Chen nodded seriously, and at this moment his cell phone suddenly rang. According to the caller ID, the person calling was Ibupa. Chen Chen picked up the phone, and Ibupa's voice on the other end sounded a little hurried. He said, sir, there is a problem. I just got the news from Chen Yuhu that Xian Ruanlong is serious. The Nguyen Group has just signed an agreement with a mining company in Chiang Rai Province, Thailand, to look for gold mines in the Huai Zai area. They really want to clean up their act. We must take them down before Thailand enters the market. Otherwise, it will be really difficult for us to do this. Will there be a gold mine? In fact, not only are there, but there are a lot of them. Of course, this does not mean that gold mines have been discovered there, but it means that there is great potential for mineral exploration in the surrounding areas of Wishai. After all, Jinghong Huaishai is a typical magmatic metamorphic mineralization belt, and the mineralizing materials have the typical characteristics of mineral deposits and ore bodies. The discovery of sapphire mines near Wishai actually indicates, to some extent, the gold potential near Wishai. Because the mineral deposits in Laos are mainly composed of various types of quartz, diabase, spinel, pyrite, and sapphire minerals, and spinel and quartz are associated minerals of corundum, ores such as sapphire. Although it cannot be said that finding sapphires will lead to finding gold mines, finding sapphires does greatly increase the probability of discovering gold mines. Putting aside these technical issues, according to Chen Chen's memory from his previous life, gold exploration had indeed been carried out in the vicinity of Wishai since 2010. At that time, people from Shanglin, Guangxi had basically occupied all the gold mines in Africa. But they still had to make money and get rich, so what should they do? Go to Laos, go to Wishai. Chen Chen still remembers a legend of wealth circulating among his fellow villagers. It was said that someone waded across a small river near Wishai, and when he went ashore to dry his shoes, he found gold powder on the soles of his shoes. He then panned in the river for 2 hours and panned out 6 grams of coarse gold sand purely by hand. Chen Chen actually didn't quite understand what this concept was, but he still remembered the second half of the legend clearly. The fellow villager who discovered the river made 300 million yuan a year, dug the mine dry, and went home. Such a legend undoubtedly conforms to the ambitions of the new era gold diggers. And from another perspective, it also illustrates the abundance of undeveloped gold resources near Huixai. Therefore, when Ibupa announced the news that Nguyen Long Group signed a mineral exploration agreement with Thailand, Chen Chen was not surprised at all. This is something that is bound to happen, either today or tomorrow, maybe a little later, but definitely not late. Because the development of the Hawaii Zai area originated around 2012. By 2015, China's Minmetals Group had already adjusted its strategic focus, sold the Tong gold mine in Chabang, Laos, and moved to northeastern Laos. Chen Chen had dealt with people from Minmetals before and temporarily served as their on-site security guard for a few days. When he heard the leaders of Minmetals Chabang talking about each village fights for itself on the stage, he found it very funny and thought that these businessmen just loved to talk big. I never expected that after living my second life, I would be associated with the gold mine. But this time, the other person who contacted was not one of us. Ibupa was right. The Nguyen Long Group must be completely defeated before the Thais actually enter the market. Otherwise, once an international dispute involves Thailand's legitimate businessmen, it would be a real trouble. The reason is simple. If you are the native force of the Golden Triangle, such as the Nguyen Long Group, the former Wan Phong, Laos Nakam, or Thailand's Ban Poppy's so-called tea gardens, then it doesn't matter how you fight. Everyone just closed their eyes and pretended not to see it. You can use your dog brains to do whatever you want. As long as you don't disturb the people, spread the impact, and handle the aftermath properly, no one will care about you. But if it is a legitimate company, it will be different. In this kind of company, even if one person is injured, let alone death, it would be a major international incident. Therefore, the first thing Chen Chen wanted to confirm was whether they were a legitimate company. He did not ask this question on the phone, but very cautiously asked Jiang he to meet Ibupa on his behalf. After the two of them combined all kinds of information and made judgments, they finally gave a result that Chen Chen was really unwilling to accept. That Thai company is really very serious and legal. They have no shady background and have never done anything to do with drug crimes. To put it simply, they are a group of adventurers who were forced into desperation by bankruptcy and had no choice but to turn their attention to Laos and the territory of Xian Guanlong. They know exactly what their partners do, but they don't care. Because in terms of form, there is really nothing non-compliant about them. Who dares to touch them? Even the law can't control them. Looking at Chen Chen's helpless expression on the sofa, Jiang He, who had just returned from Ibupa, said, "The situation is very clear now. It's just a matter of time window. I just asked my former business partner about the situation there. Fulai is the Thai mining company. They were originally dealing in Shaylite in Moshan, but their business has been suspended for a long time. In recent times, they have indeed been making changes and have also tested a batch of gold exploration equipment. And they have actually signed a contract with Wan Long Group and are ready to go. Because from outside observation, these people have taken their prospectors to the river to kayak. It is obvious that this is preparing for prospecting. I haven't received their specific plan yet, but I estimate that it won't take too long. They will definitely send someone to Huiksai within a week at the latest. If we really wait until then to fight, we will be in a lot of trouble. Mainly, we will be afraid of killing people." "That's right." Hearing his words, Chen Chen nodded slightly, and then asked, "What do you think?" "What is it?" Jiang Yi hesitated for a moment and replied, "I'm still speaking from the perspective of my own job. If I were to decide, I would tend to slow down the progress of Thailand and ask them to send people over later. But the problem is that Xian Ruanlong is also very sensitive now. If there is any delay on the Thai side, he may not suspect Fulai Company, but us instead. So it's a bit difficult, but you can try it." "Forget it, don't try." Chen Chen waved his hand decisively, and then said, "The enemy is preparing, and so are we. Right now, our level of preparation is still much higher than Xian Ruanlong's. But if we wait any longer, that may not be the case. They will have all kinds of cards that we can't imagine, and they will drag the conflict into directions that we are not good at. That is business and politics. Why should we go to war with them in the area where they are good at? If we don't prepare for a few days, will the war not be fought? What the hell? Don't bother yourself anymore. Leave for Wishai today and find a way to get first-hand intelligence. In 2 days, I will order the coalition forces to set out and start fighting directly. Clear." Jiang Yi stood up immediately, and Chen Chen reached for the pistol at his waist out of habit, but he soon realized that he couldn't go to the battlefield in person this time, because the Special Forces team really didn't play that big a role in such an operation. Since it won't have much effect, don't take unnecessary risks. So, what will the coalition forces achieve? Let's wait and see. After receiving Chen Chen's instructions, He Bongxiong acted quickly. The original plan based on adequate preparation time was drastically revised, and the modification of armed ships is still underway, but they will no longer be used. Large-scale, heavy firepower strikes were abandoned, and combat operations were replaced by pure light infantry assaults. Of course, it was light infantry wearing heavy armor and carrying a large number of projectiles, a large number of rocket launchers, incendiary rocket launchers, fuel-air explosives, rifle grenades, etc. The combat quality of the militia of the local armed forces is very worrying, but the private soldiers of the two brigade commanders are actually quite good, at least above the usable level. And they had just won a big victory, and their self-confidence and fighting spirit were still maintained at a relatively high level. Although they certainly could not win a game against the wind, it was still relatively easy for them to defeat the Ruan Long Park. The only trouble is that without the suppression of heavy firepower on the surface, the corrupt bureaucrats on the Laotian side are likely to take advantage of the situation and try to seize the fruits of victory. Once the situation occurs, the coalition forces will have to be prepared to fight them to the end with light weapons. The losses will certainly be huge, because the coalition forces must fight until the Wishai defenders are frightened and withdraw voluntarily. Then the follow-up teams will have a chance to rescue them. And Bao Xiaomei will have the opportunity to use her mediation skills to characterize this black eating black incident. The private soldiers of the two families number more than 300 people. Laos has nearly 1,000 armed forces, excluding police, that can be quickly mobilized near Huaizai, and there are also heavy artillery. If things go wrong, half of these 300 people may die. However, according to Bongxiong's feedback, the enthusiasm of private soldiers is unprecedentedly high. The reason is simple. They are really going to rob money this time. Who doesn't know that drug dealers are rich? Who doesn't know that the Ruanlong group is rich? And they even have a gold mine? If I could snatch a nugget of gold, not to mention never having to worry about food and drink for the rest of my life like those mercenaries in the Dongfeng Corps, at least the short-term problem would be solved, right? Buying a house in Dakali, bringing a wife and children over, and becoming a peace soldier in the future, wouldn't that be a great pleasure in life? So, under this premise, the commandos were increasingly eager to fight. Bongxiong implemented a closed management system for these people. The camp was completely closed, and all mobile phone signals and telephone lines were cut off. On the one hand, this was for safety and confidentiality, and on the other hand, it was also an intentional way to suppress their emotions. Only if you press hard enough will the bounce back be fierce enough. Thanks to He Bupa's superb acting skills, the Nguyen Long group was completely unaware of the coalition force's unusual movements. Or it can be said that this is also a kind of secret move. On the surface, they were building and modifying ships with great fanfare. But in fact, these people were going to enter the country from Mainland, Laos, and walk across a straight-line distance of 50 kilometers within 2 days to launch a direct attack on the Nguyen Long Industrial Park. After 2 days, the small number of vehicles needed on the mainland side were all prepared, and they still relied on Jiang He's connections. The equipment will be waiting at the Wakaka ferry. The personnel will first depart from mainland and finally meet up with the equipment in the remote suburbs of Wishai. This route was the same route that Chen Chen had taken when he fought Nuakam. Come to think of it, Chen Chen really wanted them to go to mainland to see if the old man whose leg he had broken was still alive. However, this was just a sudden idea after all. On December 6th, the team set off smoothly as planned. The man named Chen Yuhu is still staying in Dakali for inspection, but he doesn't know that his name has been written in the book of life and death by the king of hell in advance. And the time of death is 48 hours later. At the same time, in a small village called Hawasalan near Huixai, Xian Wenlong was dealing with a small matter that was not too difficult, but made him quite unhappy. He stood in the central square of the village and ordered his men to shut down all the running machines and water pumps. Then he said to the men, women, old and young who were kneeling in a row in front of him, I gave you time. I told you that we were going to organize mining exploration here, and we want you to move out as soon as possible to make room for us. I also said that after the exploration work is completed, this place will still be yours. I will definitely not take it away. But what about you? How did you treat me? I've warned you many times and said all sorts of nice things to you, but you still won't leave. You are really troublesome people. I didn't come here for you today, but I have to deal with this matter personally. I'd better give you a word. Within 3 days, move all your factories and equipment away. You can go to Wishai to collect the moving expenses and equipment wear and tear fees from me. I will definitely not owe you any money. But if you still don't move after 3 days, don't blame me for being rude. After he finished speaking, the people kneeling below fell silent. No one dared to speak. What else could be said? He robbed you openly. Do you still expect him to be kind and let you go? Don't be ridiculous. Is Xian Ruanlong a serious businessman? He stood there with a dignified manner and said some sanctimonious words, as if he really was a man of rules and reason. But in fact, before he said this, people had already died in the village, and it was bad luck for those 2 young men. They were energetic young men in their hometown and followed their elders here to make a fortune. When they saw someone being kicked and beaten, they rushed forward in a fit of rage and were instantly shot down by 2 bullets. What a pity. Why are you competing with them? Forget about kicking them. Even if they break all your teeth, you have to swallow them. Even if they break your waist, you have to kneel down. Even if they cut off your tongue, you have to keep calling them hello, boss. Otherwise, you will have no way to survive. Because they are not even warlords who can occasionally be reasonable. They are drug dealers. Everyone felt sad. Their mind had finally begun to take shape. Although the profit was not too much, it was still considered worthwhile. But even such a small thing was snatched away by others. There is no rule in this place. It is the law of the jungle. A pair of eyes looked at Xian Ruanlong, who was going away, and there was no anger in their eyes, but only a strong disappointment. The adjutant who followed Xian Ruanlong saw the eyes of these people. He shook his head, took 2 steps closer, and said to Xian Ruanlong, no one should be killed today. There is no need to make it like this. Xian Ruanlong paused for a moment, then replied, I don't want to kill him either, but I can establish my authority if I don't kill him. The target I gave them was 2. Now that we have killed 2, there should be no problem. It was definitely no problem before. We could kill 10, 8, or 100 people without any problem before. But now we have to do business, boss. I think we should keep a low profile in the future. After all, we still have to clean our butts. I know. Xian Ruanlong nodded and said, by the way, how much is it? 20,000 Miko alone? They will definitely take care of it. It's a bit expensive. What to do? It's the same old story. They just say it's an internal conflict. They don't dare to report it. If they do, the people in the north won't be able to do business anymore. That's good. Xian Ruanlong nodded with satisfaction, then turned to his adjutant and said, don't worry, I know what's going on. The ones who did weren't ours. Aren't they the security guards you hired temporarily from the surrounding area? You are the one who gives them money, not me. I didn't give them any money. What does it have to do with me? Dakali inside the villa command room. In the absence of real-time positioning and advanced command systems, the people far away in Dakali could only rely on a very primitive way to understand the team situation. That is radio. This communication method is extremely inefficient and unreliable because the commander has no real way of understanding the true situation of the team and can only make judgments based on the reports of the highest commander on the front line. Obviously, as long as the report relies on people, it will definitely contain subjective processing. This is why, in the radio age, battlefield commanders often make mistakes that seem stupid in later generations. For example, the two most classic rescues of Manstein during World War II. Although the apparent reasons were insufficient coordination among combat units and insufficient determination of commanders, if we trace the root cause, the core problem was still the non-objectivity of battlefield intelligence. In both rescue operations, Manstein overestimated the fighting spirit of his team and did not fully understand the team's assembly situation, which led to him being restrained in the face of an obvious shortage of reserve troops. He did not dare to concentrate all his strength to attack one point, but instead repeatedly used pincer attacks and tested with small-scale armored units. This ultimately led to the offensive not only failing to achieve its effect, but also almost sacrificing the support troops. Of course, from the perspective of the justice of World War II, Manstein's failure was inevitable. But from a purely theoretical perspective of war, the German army's defeat also has something worthy of reflection and learning for all commanders. And now, Chen Chen has learned his lesson. Therefore, he, contrary to his usual practice, imposed strict control over the private army commando team, requiring that the commander and deputy commander report on the situation every 2 hours respectively. On the one hand, repeated reporting greatly reduces the subjectivity of intelligence, and on the other hand, it also allows the commandos on the front line to have a clear idea of what is going on. As long as the headquarters control is still there, then their mission is still there. It is impossible for them to just take it easy and fight casually. Such a strategy undoubtedly made Chen Chen even busier than when he personally participated in the battle, because he had to carefully analyze every piece of feedback and eliminate the redundant and erroneous information. Neither he Bongxiong nor he Bupa understood this way of command. In their view, the head coach only needs to throw out a goal, and the rest should be given to the frontline commanders with full freedom. Otherwise, if he personally handles everything, wouldn't that become the micromanagement on the battlefield that the North hates the most? Looking at Chen Chen, who was still staring at the map, he Bongxiong couldn't help but ask, "Brother Chen, is it really necessary for us to be so detailed when we are commanding from the rear? I mean, they're just on their way now, and they haven't officially entered the combat deployment yet. You only sleep for a few hours all day, your body can't take it. What's so hard to handle?" Chen Chen snorted and replied, "When I was on the battlefield in person, the intensity was much higher than it is now. At least I'm sitting in a command room now and only need to look at the situation on paper, instead of walking in the jungle and being on guard against poisonous insects and snakes all the time. Then don't bother talking about details. If your people are of the same quality as the Dongfeng Corps, I won't bother to care. Just throw them out and let them fight on their own. But now, you guys can't do it, right? If the frontline troops are not good enough, the commander must find a way to make up for the shortcomings. Finally, traveling quickly is also very important in the entire battle, even more important than actually fighting." Understood, he Bongxiong said it clearly, but in fact his tone was still a bit perfunctory. Of course he would not question Chen Chen's ability, but he had to admit that he did think Chen Chen was overly sensitive. He Bup on the side had the same idea. The two of them stood next to Chen Chen, looking at the information stacked together that was almost completely indistinguishable, and they didn't even know what the point of looking at this stuff was. However, just as the two looked at each other and were about to symbolically help Chen Chen share some of the work, the latter suddenly raised his head and said, "Have Commando Group 1 and Group 2 arrived at Banchaputo now? Why is the speed so abnormal? They arrived in Ban Piasi 10 hours ago. The straight line distance between Ban Piasi and Ban Chapatao is 9.8 kilometers. Most of the area between the two places is jungle, and there are few usable paths. How could they walk so fast?" After hearing Chen Chen's words, he Bupa thought for a moment and then answered, "The commandos themselves don't carry many weapons, so the risk of their identities being exposed is relatively low, so they may move more boldly. Maybe they found a vehicle they could use? Or hitchhiked? From Ban Pai Yashi to Ban Cha Putao, the entire road is barren and wild. There is only a small section of rural road in Ban Pai Yashi that was built by Nuo Kong. After Nuo Kong died, Xian Ruan Long did not take over the camp. It should be abandoned now. Where can they hitchhike? This speed is definitely not right. Contact the front and ask them to report their position again. Our weapons must arrive at the same time as theirs. It doesn't matter if they're a few minutes late or an hour or two late, but don't let them be delayed by half a day or a day in the end. Clear." He Bongxiong immediately ordered the communications liaison officer to go and confirm again. Soon, the liaison officer brought back the results, confirming that the team had arrived at Banchaputo and also brought back key evidence, which was the Banchaputo village that the commandos saw and the name they inquired about in the village. Upon receiving this news, he Bongxiong couldn't help but feel a little proud. He said, "Brother Chen, I told you that you can rest assured. The quality of my private soldiers is still good. At least they have all been strictly trained. They are not very strong in combat, but they will not make mistakes in this regard. Look, even though it took 10 hours to walk 10 kilometers, this is still a normal speed." Normal ass. He Bupa on the side. He had already reacted. Banchaputo Mountain and Banchaputo Village in Laos are not the same place at all. They just sound similar in Lao dialect. The Ban Chapatao they arrived at should be Chapatao Village near Ban Piasi. Ban means village in Lao. Ban Piasi and Ban Chapatao are actually two mountains. Never mind. They haven't reached it yet. Commander Chen is right. They're still about 4 kilometers away from Ban Chapatao. He Bongxiong was stunned. He looked at Chen Chen with some embarrassment. At this moment, he suddenly understood the significance of Chen Chen's command to this extent. Indeed, if I were to be the supreme commander this time, I would probably misjudge the team's position, causing all subsequent actions to be out of sync. Equipment and people are small matters. What if the equipment is discovered or people get lost due to the delay? That would be a big problem. Such a small intelligence error. No, it's not even an error, but just a deviation, could lead to serious and uncontrollable consequences. It has to be said that Bangxiong really felt that his cognition had been refreshed. At the same time, he also truly realized the gap between himself and Chen Chen. It is definitely not just the gap in so-called tactical level and command level, but more importantly, the gap in systematic combat thinking. Chen Chen was able to consider all the details of a battle. In his eyes, those things that he had never thought of and never cared about were as obvious as a large piece of ink on a pure white background. Sometimes it was these details that determined the final outcome of a battle. I am convinced, Brother Chen. I am really convinced this time. Your war is totally different from our war. Can you open a class in the future? Open an army command class? Seriously, I'll definitely be the first to sign up. I'm not kidding. This stuff is so useful. Open a class? An idea suddenly occurred to Chen Chen. This seems to be a good idea. If we want to grow and develop in Pubei, or even on a global scale, in addition to improving our strength, the most important thing is to establish good relations with various armed groups. After all, many of them are their customers or potential allies. If you want to maintain this kind of relationship, simply helping them get rich is not enough. After all, how many tachuli can one grab in this world? Once this unique opportunity is used up, it is gone. But if I really build a school or a military academy, wouldn't I be able to turn many people into my own direct descendants? That's wonderful. Why was Chiang Kai-shek called the principal? Wasn't it because he had really been the principal of the Whampoa Military Academy? During that period, he extended his tentacles to the vast number of young officers, cultivated a large number of direct descendants, greatly expanded his influence, and also improved his prestige. This is a path that has been confirmed by historical experience. And not just in history. Why are Americans so keen on IMIT? Activities? Is it the logic behind this thing the same as that of the Whampoa Military Academy? Why did the North allow Shijiazhuang Army Academy to accept so many Nige students? The reason is the same. Of course, these are still too far away for Chen Chen, but even if you look at it from a closer perspective, his initial relationship with the Jackal was actually built through repeated teaching and learning. There's really something to it. Although we cannot focus our main energy on this, we can first build a framework and create a virtual organization. What kind of lakeside university can a capitalist set up? I indirectly manage thousands of people and tens of thousands of guns. Is it not excessive for me to set up a Munka infantry college? It is reasonable. Thinking of this, Chen Chen said, this matter can be considered, but it will definitely not be done in a short period of time. Well, brother you should first set up a platform in your team. When I come back from Indonesia, we can try to get this thing done. If you can do it well, it will be a good deed. Why did you come back from Indonesia? I understand. Bangxiong suddenly realized. This time, Chen Chen felt that he really understood. After all, they currently lack people with real experience and systematic experience. Even if they build a school, there will be no one to teach. Only after returning from Indonesia, when the company is on the right track and Lao Zhu has recruited enough people in the name of the company, can this thing be put into operation. But of course, these are all long-term plans. The most important thing now is to take over the Ruan Long Park first. Chen Chen shook his head to drive away some of the messy thoughts, then lowered his head again and lay down on the battle map. The equipment team can set off. Also, get the helicopter ready. It's only 50 kilometers from here to Huaizai, but we have to avoid the air defense zone of Famon Battalion, so we can only go north. It takes about 30 minutes for us to reach Huaizai, and the helicopter can only stay in the air for 2.5 hours. So it must appear at the most critical time and in the most critical place. The support troops are also ready. Finally, control Qinyuhu. Once we start fighting here, there's no need for him to be alive. Hearing Chen Chen's words, Bupa and Bangxiong immediately stood up and answered at the same time. Clear. 24 hours later, near Nguyen Long Park. The captain in charge of this assault operation was holding the Recon 3 lent to him by the Dongfeng Corps. While observing the situation in Nguyen Long Park in the distance, he said with a little emotion, "Why do you say they are professional soldiers? Their equipment is so much better than ours. Thermal imaging telescope? This thing is really useful, but it's a pity that we can't afford it." Hearing his words, the deputy beside him chuckled and replied, "If we can take it down this time, we might all get rich. Then we can ask the brigade commander to buy us a batch of equipment. Forget it now. The brigade commander is not willing to give up. Our bulletproof vests were replaced by Commander Chen. Don't tell anyone about this." The captain stopped talking and continued, "Almost, we are ready to attack. Signalman, notify the rear. We will set off in 5 minutes and launch the attack in 30 minutes. The enemy's defense is lax, so it is not expected that a helicopter will be needed, but it would be best if they could fly over to assist in the subsequent capture and liquidation work. Everyone get ready for battle. Clear." The order was quickly passed down, and 2 minutes later, everyone climbed out of the hidden jungle and walked towards the park in the distance. Yes, there was no tactics or formation, they just walked over. It took them 10 minutes to walk or rather run the 2 kilometers. The distance is actually not far, because the Nguyen Long Park is located in the suburbs of Huaizai. This was originally for safety considerations, but now, such a location has become the biggest unsafe factor. The security guards at the gate were stunned. They had never seen such a large armed force near Huixai. Someone stepped forward to ask, but the captain didn't wait for him to speak before answering directly. "Routine inspection. The security guard's expression changed, but before he could say the second sentence, the captain's gun fired. Bang! The head exploded, and the captain continued. Everyone, control the main entrances and exits. Fire all the rocket launchers and fuel-air explosive bombs, and destroy all their firing points. Don't save ammunition. Don't let anyone go. Clear. The intercom relayed replies from other groups, and soon, dense gunfire rang out in Wishai at night. Are you kidding me? Who's hitting us? In the office, listening to the dense gunfire outside the window, Xian Ruanlong's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He simply couldn't understand who was so bold as to attack his base at this time and in this place. Although most of his troops are scattered outside at this time to protect his huge industry, even if it is just the royal guards, there are still nearly 500 people in Nguyen Park, okay? The weapons of these 500 people were not advanced, but there were more than 10 heavy machine guns alone, and each soldier was also equipped with a small number of RPGs and rifle grenades. Looking at the entire Huaxia, the forces that can defeat me cannot be said to be few, but it can be said that there are none at all. Even the troops deployed here by the Laotian 3rd Military Region have not reached the level to challenge themselves. Who is the one who is so depressed? A name suddenly flashed through Xian Ruanlong's mind, but he quickly rejected it. It can't be the Dongfeng Corps. The Dongfeng Corps doesn't have that many people, and this is definitely not their style. If they wanted to fight, I would never have the chance to sit here and leisurely consider the question of is it them or not. According to their style, the first round of covering strikes with heavy artillery and rockets would be enough to destroy their entire park. There was no need for them to launch such an attack, as they were certainly fully capable of projecting heavy firepower upon themselves. Besides that, they should have no reason to hit me. After all, Chen Yuhu is still staying in Dakali. According to his intelligence, the conflict between the coalition forces and the Dongfeng Corps has become increasingly intensified. Chen Chen should first deal with his own internal problems, at least get rid of Ibupa first, and then take care of himself, right? Could it be Zhao Jiaoyang? It's possible. Although Zhao Jiaoyang was said to be dead, his private soldiers and his team were not completely wiped out. There is no room for people like them to survive in Dakali today. Their only choice is to flee across the border to Laos and Thailand. Then it is very likely that they will gather together again and find ways to make money. How can they make money without resources, connections, or even channels? Grab, only grab. Thinking of this, Xian Ruanlong couldn't help but feel a little angry, but also a little helpless. I was angry because these people actually thought that they were easy to manipulate and they had robbed me. I was helpless because, after all, this trend of robbing when you have no money was brought up by the Dongfeng Corps. They robbed Nuakong, the 4 major families Zhao Jiaoyang, and of course they also robbed me. Now everyone thought that they could really get rich by doing this. But they didn't expect that not everyone was from the Dongfeng Corps. Xian Ruanlong took a deep breath, then said to his adjutant, "Notify everyone to arm themselves and don't be afraid of them. At most, they're just a group of defeated soldiers. No matter how strong they are, their combat effectiveness won't be that great, and their equipment is definitely not up to par. As long as we hold out until they run out of ammunition, we will have a sure win. Clear." The adjutant immediately turned around and rushed outside the door to organize the defense. He was full of confidence at this time, because he knew that the combat effectiveness of Nguyen Long Group's drug trafficking armed force was already elite even in the whole of Laos. Although the sudden attack does catch people off guard, but so what? Dozens of heavy machine guns and hundreds of guns swept over. Can you withstand it? There are barricades and trenches in the Nguyen Long Park. The adjutant issued orders one by one in an orderly manner and mobilized all the forces that could be dispatched. In fact, there are not many good people in this park. Even though there are jade processing factories and office buildings in the park, those who can work there are basically Xian Ruanlong's direct descendants. If they put down their guns, these people can pretend to be businessmen. But if they pick up their guns, they are still real soldiers. Moreover, most of these people have actually experienced the battlefield. There were quite a few people whose hands were stained with blood. If a real fight broke out, who would be afraid of whom? Under his organization, men, women, and even children with guns rushed out of the building and rushed to the barricades and trenches outside. The sound of our own gunfire suddenly became more frequent, and the heavy machine guns also began to show their power. The adjutant had a smile on his face, for he had anticipated the outcome of this battle. But within 2 minutes, his smile completely disappeared. The explosion sounded more frequent than the gunshots, even a little too frequent. The heavy machine gun position fell silent instantly, and fleeing security guards kept running past him. He subconsciously wanted to grab those people, but there were too many of them, and he couldn't grab any of them. After just one encounter, our side was defeated? Are you kidding me? He ran out of the bunker and poked his head out to see who the other side was and what equipment they were using, but he couldn't see the opponents in the dark at all. Instead, he saw a scene that frightened him immensely. Dense smoke bombs. A fuel-air bomb exploded in the window of the room. A pickup truck spewing grenades. Dense, armor-piercing incendiary bombs trailing red light were fired everywhere. And the most terrifying thing is the fire burning everywhere. He had no idea how the fires were started, but when he saw the bright yellow flames, his heart instantly sank to the bottom. No need to think anymore, this must be the Dongfeng Corps. They actually came? How could they come? The adjutant was covered in cold sweat. He no longer had time to organize the defense. Instead, he turned around and ran quickly towards Xian Ruanlong's office. Now he had only one thought in his mind, and that was to run quickly. I can't beat him. It's impossible to beat him. That's the Dongfeng Corps. The Dongfeng Corps is a ruthless, merciless, and ruthless corps. He kicked the door open with a bang, and at this moment, Xian Ruanlong was standing in front of the desk in a daze, holding the phone in his hand. Seeing the adjutant rushing in, he said, I already know. It's not the Dongfeng Corps, it's He Bangxiong's team. They really came? We were wrong. They really had an internal conflict. But the internal conflict is not about the so-called drug prohibition in Dakali, but because He Bangxiong and the Dongfeng Corps want to kill us. But He Bupa doesn't want it for the time being. The Dongfeng Corps did not come. They had to stay in Dakali to guard against He Bupa. Only He Bangxiong's private soldiers came. Chen Yuhu is already in communication. Our only chance now is Bao Xiaomei. Chen Yuhu is going to find Bao Xiaomei and ask her to mediate. Only she can save us now. The adjutant felt relieved when he heard Xian Wanlong's words. At least not the Dongfeng Corps. That means there is still a chance to hold on. So he immediately said, that's good. We have to hold on now. Boss, go contact the Laotians and ask them to come to the rescue. I'll lead the defense. We'll stay in the building. They won't be able to get in. After all, they're not the Dongfeng Corps. They are not so strong that they are unreasonable. Boss, you go first and break out from the back. I'll hold them back. I can't leave. Xian Wanlong shook his head firmly. Once I leave, this place will surely collapse. This is the property I fought so hard to acquire. I absolutely cannot just give it to them like this. Go lead the team. I have my own plans. Clear. The adjutant turned around and left the room again. At this moment, in the air not far from Wishai, the sound of the firebird flapping its wings could be heard. Chen Yu, who sat opposite Chen Chen, trembling with fear, not daring to look up or at the man in front of him. Just now, he made a phone call at gunpoint and revealed a critical but false information to his boss. That is, the only ones who fought in Wishai were He Bangxiong's private soldiers, and the Dongfeng Corps was not directly involved. This piece of news was actually very credible because he had already informed his boss several days ago about the internal strife among the Dongfeng Corps, He Bangxiong, and He Bupa. Over the past few days, this news has been continuously reinforced and has almost become a fact recognized by everyone. In this case, the new information that he conveyed did not change the premise of the internal strife, but only modified the cause of the internal strife. It should even be said that it was not a modification, but a further improvement. It is conceivable how much Xian Wanlong believed it when he heard the news. And this kind of firm belief will bring him a catastrophe. This was because the helicopters of the Dongfeng Corps were about to arrive, and he still thought that he would be safe as long as he hid in the building shelters in the park or fought desperately to break out. But he didn't know that the precious time for escape had been consumed by his own phone call. The only fate that awaits him is death. Chen Yuhu's mind was in a mess. At this moment, he truly felt the gap in intelligence or in ancient wisdom. What seems like a brilliant plot to sow discord to you may seem like a child's play to them. All the intentions and conspiracies had been seen through long ago. But they took advantage of the conspiracies and pushed the Wanlong group step by step into an abyss of no return. Chen Yuhu could not help but let out a long sigh. And after hearing his sigh, the man opposite actually laughed. He asked, why? Have you realized your stupidity? Chen Yuhu looked up in shock, hesitated for a few seconds, and then answered, no, it's because you are too strong, sir. No, you are just too stupid. Chen Chen interrupted him without hesitation and continued. Now, Xian Wanlong's business has been completed. Next, we will deal with your business. You said you are Chen Yuhu, so you should be very close to Xian Wanlong, right? If the relationship is close enough, it means you should be very familiar with his business. Now, I'll give you a chance. Write down everything you know and don't know. As long as you write it clearly, I'll let you go. To be honest, people like you are of no use to us and pose no threat to us. Using other people's money to exchange for your own life, this business sounds like a good deal, right? Yes, of course. Chen Yuhu even felt that this was the only true statement he had heard during this period of time. What if I tell it all? What if I confess everything? He was not originally considered Xian Wanlong's confidant, but just an intelligence officer who happened to have a similar name and was temporarily pulled in to play the role of his relative. But that's where the problem lies. I really don't know Xian Wanlong's background, or rather, I really don't understand it completely. The only thing he had been involved with before was the drug trafficking business that the Wanlong group had not yet laundered. Now he was asked to write down everything, but where would he go? However, he would never show his weakness at this time. If you show your weakness, you will die. Even if you are making it up, you have to provide enough information. Anyway, they didn't have time to verify it. As long as they could delay it, they would still have a chance. So Chen Yuhu immediately replied, sure, absolutely. Sir, I don't have any feelings for Chen Yulong. I was just forced. I really don't want to sell drugs. I just want to open a mine. I used to be in the mining business. By the way, I know about gold mines. Xian Wanlong is prospecting for minerals recently, right over at Haosala. They also killed 2 people, 2 northerners. Sir, I can write them to you one by one. Just give me some time, and I will definitely finish them. No need to say so much. Chen Chen interrupted Chen Yuhu and asked, I only want to ask you one thing. You said you were a miner, so let me ask you, where is the Xian Winlong tin mine in Laos? Chen Yuhu was stunned for a moment, but soon he regained his composure. Tin mines? I have never heard of tin mines. I only know of copper and gold mines, but they only produce copper, not gold. Sir, I really don't remember any tin mines. He doesn't know. Chen Chen sighed and turned to look at Ibupa beside him. The latter ignored Chen Yuhu and asked directly, does Xian Wanlong really have a tin mine? Yes, but it's near Chabang, a small mine. It's been there for many years. There was an accident at the mine. Several people died. They were all shot. The impact was quite large. Of course, I mean the impact within the mine. This kid doesn't even know this, and he thinks I'm trying to trick him, Li Bang. Hearing Chen Chen calling his name, Li Bang understood and walked forward. In front of Chen Yuhu's horrified eyes, he knocked him unconscious with the butt of his gun. Then he dragged Chen Yuhu out of the door like a dead dog. A moment later, a crisp gunshot was heard outside the villa. Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief and continued. The sun-drying session should be almost over. Brother, go ask about the situation. Before Chen Chen could finish his words, his cell phone suddenly rang. He took out his cell phone and saw that the caller was Bao Xiaomei. Immediately afterwards, Xiaoyu walked in from the living room door. Almost the same words were heard on the phone and in the living room. Laos has intervened, and some of them are asking whether the Dongfeng Corps is participating. How do you answer? Chen Chen glanced at his phone, then at Xiaoyu, and then replied, Huai Zai was beaten by Ho Bang Hung, and my helicopter keys were stolen by them. I was just about to settle accounts with him, but this matter has nothing to do with me. What the 756th Brigade did, what does it have to do with me? The time it took the commandos to capture the Wanlong Park was even shorter than Chen Chen had expected. After the battle began, it took only less than 2 hours for the entire Wanlong Park to fall under the commandos' control. Moreover, the casualties caused by this battle were shockingly low. The commandos suffered no more than 20 casualties, and even the Nguyen Long Group only lost about 40 people. As soon as the helicopter arrived, the drug dealers of the Nguyen Long Group collapsed. This does not conform to the inherent impression many people have of drug dealers, because in the eyes of most people, drug dealers are crazy, desperate, and struggling to the end. But in fact, their madness is only directed at those drug enforcement police. It can even be said more absolutely that it only targets anti-drug police in the north, because they know better than anyone that if they fall into the hands of the northern police, they will have no other choice but death. Therefore, they have to risk their lives, because if they risk, they may have a chance to survive, but if they don't risk, they can only wait to die. This is a helpless and sad fact, but in a sense it is also a fact that people in the north should be proud of, because this proves that when it comes to drug control, no one in the world can match it. As the saying goes, the two most dangerous things in the world are tax evasion in the United States and drug trafficking in the north. The fact that such a meme can be spread is actually a kind of indirect and implicit recognition. Therefore, with the commandos' identity made clear and their advantage lost, the morale of the drug traffickers of the Nguyen Long Group quickly collapsed. According to the battle situation reported from the front line, those people first abandoned the outer barricades and trenches and retreated into several main buildings and factories, and then quickly surrendered under the threat of several fuel air bombs. The commandos captured all the employees of the Nguyen Long Group with almost no effort. There were less than 200 and 300 prisoners, but nearly 800 of them. This sounds exaggerated. After all, even if there are 800 pigs, it will take you 3 days and 3 nights to catch them. But the problem is that many people have overlooked one issue, that is, the pigs will not surrender in an organized manner. After the first group of people surrendered, the situation developed like an avalanche. It only took a dozen minutes from the capture of the first building to the capture of Xian Ruanlong, who failed to break out and was forced back into the building by the heavy machine gun on the helicopter. All the people were detained in the lobby of the main building. The captain of the commando team learned some tricks from the Dongfeng Corps and used the trick of killing the chicken to scare the monkeys among these people. Of course, he didn't play the game as well as Chen Chen, and it was only after he killed more than 50 people that he finally got the situation under control. At this time, the Laotian police battalion and nearby troops had arrived at the outskirts of the Nguyen Long Group, and the two sides entered a confrontation. The two sides have not yet fired shots, but out of caution, the commando team has not agreed to contact Laos. They are like bandits who have taken a large number of hostages, fearlessly wearing down the patience of the Laotian side. They have indeed completed most of their mission, and now it is time for political means to come into play. In the villa of the Dongfeng Corps, the core members of the Dongfeng Group and various stakeholders gathered together to look at the latest battle reports and summarize and discuss the current situation. The current situation is that there is no suspense in taking down the Ruanlong Group. And the better news is that we have captured Xian Ruanlong, which means that information about almost all of his industries has actually fallen into our hands. As long as we are given enough time, we can slowly digest all these things. But the problem is we may not have time. The Lao side has already launched a formal inquiry into us. Of course, it's only the local governor who is communicating with us now. But if we can't give them a satisfactory answer, there is a high possibility that we will be forced into a national-level conflict with them. This is definitely not the result we want to see. So, we have to make a decision as soon as possible. Should we give up some of our interests and get an acceptable result as quickly as possible? Or should we continue to delay for a while and try to gain more benefits? The risk of the former is almost zero. I have completed preliminary contacts with some officials from Bokyo province in Laos. They have not put forward clear requirements, but they are very willing to cooperate. This is an opportunity that can be seized, Mr. Chen. What do you think? Bao Xiaomei introduced the situation in no time. Now, she has become more capable. Although she still has a seductive look, she is not as evil as before. Otherwise, why is there a saying that goes, you become what you do? In the previous life, the Bao family started to decline with the drug trade, and later moved on to gambling, fraud, money laundering, and smuggling. They did everything and made money from everything. Their bottom line was lowered time and time again, and their pattern became smaller and smaller. It could even be said that they were disgusting to look at. And in this life, because of the existence of Chen Chen, the butterfly, their contacts with the north are more frequent, their layouts are more ambitious, and the plans they participate in are more far-reaching. It also makes them seem less offensive. How does that sentence go? Although she does not have a dragon body, she has dragon spirit. Chen Chen nodded approvingly at Bao Xiaomei, and then answered, the deal is feasible, and this is within our original plan. However, we still need to think carefully about how to trade and negotiate. First, we must extract all the details about Xian Ruanlong, find out what he has, and learn how to control him. Only by doing this can we have the capital to negotiate with the Lao side. But this is actually a very serious problem. If these things are handed over, Xian Ruanlong will be dead soon. I'm afraid he won't be that stupid, nor will he give in so easily. After the words were spoken, everyone in the conference room nodded thoughtfully. In fact, at the beginning, their basic goal was just to understand and contact some of Xian Wenlong's industries through the Nguyenlong Park. After conquering the park, they would continue to clean up other industries and carry out a wave of hit-and-run looting. But now that Xian Wenlong has been captured and Laos has entered the game, that basic goal is obviously no longer enough to satisfy everyone. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the coalition forces may even take over the various legal industries that Xian Wenlong has already laid out and extend their tentacles further along the Mekong River. By then, the benefits everyone can gain will be far beyond what a robbery can provide. So, if you can find a solution, it's best to find it as soon as possible. So we need to get Xian Wenlong to cooperate with us first, and then get Laos to cooperate with us? Sure Dakai, who was sitting next to Chen Chen, asked. That's right. Bao Xiaomei nodded in response. Can we use interrogation methods? I'm afraid not. Xian Ruanlong is a tough guy, and he is also very aware of his situation. If we want him to confess, it will probably be difficult to just interrogate him. Another point is that instead of trading with us, he might as well go and trade with Laos. It's all protection money anyway, so there's no difference between paying it to us and paying it directly to Laos. If they just give it to Laos, they can still make some money. But if they give it to us, there will be nothing left. When Bao Xiaomei said this, everyone present burst into laughter. Only Chen Chen, who was sitting in the middle, held his forehead and sighed. Damn it. When did my team's reputation become like this? What do you mean you won't leave any bones behind if you hand it over to us? We are not devils, okay? Stereotypes are harmful. I'm just a little cruel to my enemies, but those who really follow me are still living well. However, at this moment, no one cares about his complicated psychological activities. After listening to Bao Xiaomei's explanation, Shi Dakai spoke again. So now our most important issue is actually to make Xian Ruanlong think that cooperating with us is more promising. So, our early preparations were meaningful. The Dongfeng Corps was not directly involved, which left him with a glimmer of hope. We can try to convince him to give up the drug business and then… Impossible. Chen Chen interrupted Shi Dakai and said, if we do this, the battle line will be stretched too long. There is also another problem, that is, we are actually controlled by him and cannot take the initiative. We must deter him, not cooperate with him. The correct approach should be to find out what he really cares about and use that to threaten him. If he doesn't want his life, what else does he want? Can you refer to Kun Sa's experience? Bao Xiaomei thought for a moment and then said, we give him a chance to survive legally? I don't want to give it. Chen Chen shook his head decisively. What a joke, letting Xian Ruanlong live. Xian Ruanlong is not Kun Sa. He is now in his prime and has an amazing business acumen. If you really let the tiger go back to the mountains, not to mention how to catch him back, what would you do if he makes a comeback in the future? Kill him again? Wouldn't that be a vicious circle? After hearing Chen Chen's answer, Bao Xiaomei nodded thoughtfully. If I can't trade my life, then I can only try interrogation. There is really no other way. I think there is something else that he cares about. Shi Dakai suddenly spoke and then said, bring him here. I can make him talk. Are you sure? Bao Xiaomei asked with a frown. In fact, if it was Chen Chen who said this, she might have taken it as a decision. But now that the person who said this was Shi Dakai, she had to doubt it. After all, Shi Dakai does not have Chen Chen's amazing record, nor does he have his magical foresight. I am sure. Shi Dakai nodded firmly, then looked at Chen Chen. Captain, let me try. Can. Chen Chen nodded decisively. He didn't blindly trust Shi Dakai, but he felt that this time, he really should be given a chance to stand on his own. Just 2 hours later, Xian Ruanlong was taken on the Mi 171sh and prepared to head to Dakali. The reason why it took so much time was certainly not because of how far the journey was, but simply because it took a lot of time to communicate with Laos. However, thanks to Bao Xiaomei's mediation, the outcome was ultimately good. Of course, Laos also wants to squeeze the profits of the Nguyenlong group. Now, someone is willing to do this dirty work for them. They are so happy that they can't wait to stop it. Their only doubt is whether the Dongfeng Corps wants to do business or find an excuse to arrest people. If Xian Ruanlong reached the north quietly, they would really have no way to explain. But Bao Xiaomei convinced them with just one sentence. Dongfeng Group is a business, just like Ruanlong Group. Reasonable. So Xian Ruanlong was caught like this. He didn't even know where he was going, whether he was going to be executed or had other arrangements. It's impossible to say that he's not afraid. Who in this world is not afraid of death? However, even after getting off the helicopter and seeing Chen Chen, Xian Ruanlong still maintained basic composure. Is this Mr. Shipwreck? I've heard a lot about you. Nice to meet you. He tried to reach out to Chen Chen, but Chen Chen completely ignored him and turned to Cheng Lei, who had just gotten off the helicopter, and asked, is everything going well? It went smoothly. We only fired a dozen rockets. The guy tried to run away, but we forced him back. The bastard even fired a heavy machine gun at me, and the paint on my landing gear was completely wiped off. Captain, please be a little more ruthless later. If there is anything you need me to do, I can help you. Just shut up. Chen Chen rolled his eyes and said, you should be more careful with your words. You haven't faded away after retiring from the army. You really think you were a bandit, don't you? Hee hee. There's no need to be lenient with drug dealers like this. Cheng Lei led his men away with a wry smile, while Chen Chen turned to Xian Ruanlong again, nodded at him, and then led him into the interrogation room that had been cleaned up long ago. The protagonist of this interrogation was not Chen Chen, but Shi Dakai. But Chen Chen still participated and took on the role of assisting. Name? Chen Chen asked. Xian Ruanlong was stunned for a moment and replied, Xian Ruanlong, my real name is Chen Yulong. Gender? Male. Place of origin? Zhengzhou, Honan, currently living in Wishai. Government? I am really a legal businessman. No, I admit that I sold drugs, but I didn't sell even a gram to the north. I sold all of it to Europe, America, and Southeast Asia. I am different from Nuakong, that kid. Answer whatever you are asked. Chen Chen shouted sternly, and Xian Ruanlong immediately fell silent. This is a necessary process, not because I really need to confirm any information with him, but to make him subconsciously obedient. As long as obedience is established, the subsequent interrogation of Shi Dakai will be much easier. After completing a set of routines, nearly half an hour had passed. At this time, Shi Dakai also pushed the door and walked into the room. He nodded at Chen Chen, then sat down next to Chen Chen, which meant that the real interrogation had officially begun. Shi Dakai looked up at Xian Ruanlong, and his first sentence surprised Chen Chen. He said, Xian Ruanlong, we have found out that you have 4 sons and 3 daughters. Do you want to have 4 more daughters? After hearing Shi Dakai's words, Xian Ruanlong was stunned for several seconds. For a moment, he really couldn't understand what Shi Dakai meant. But soon his doubts were answered, because the doctor that Shi Dakai had contacted had already walked into the interrogation room. They were wearing white coats, carrying surgical boxes in their hands, and their faces were covered tightly with masks. When they stood in the cold interrogation room, there was an inexplicable sense of weirdness and oppression. Xian Ruanlong glanced at the doctors behind him, then at Shi Dakai, and his voice became a little colder. What do you want to do? What do I want to do? Shi Dakai smiled and said, you should know clearly what we want. We want all your property, whether it's legal or illegal. As long as you can cooperate with us, I promise that there will be no problems with your offspring. But if you don't cooperate, don't blame me for being ruthless. As he spoke, Shi Dakai took the medical kit from the doctor, pulled out a scalpel, and said while gesturing, I've inquired, the most suitable age for sex reassignment surgery is between 15 and 18 years old. And the ages of your 4 sons are right in this range. Of course, we don't know where they are yet, but you should know that as long as we want, we can find them anyway. After we find them, we will show some kindness. You know, after you die, their survival will be a major problem. What good can a drug dealer's offspring expect when their father is killed? It's hard to live, just like those poor people you've seen before. You can't expect them to be boatmen on the Mekong River or drug mules, right? So, I can give them a better way. I send them to Thailand, you can't. Don't you dare. Xian Ruanlong suddenly became excited. Veins popped on his face, and he pulled the chair forward. Li Bang, who was standing behind him, stepped forward and hit him on the back of the head with the butt of his gun. Of course, he controlled the strength this time, just to make Xian Ruanlong feel pain, but did not knock him out directly. After seeing Xian Ruanlong's reaction, Chen Chen's admiration for Shi Dakai was truly like a surging river. Shit, who the hell could have thought of such a way of playing? Turning his son into a daughter? What kind of brain could come up with such nonsense? Moreover, Xian Ruanlong seemed to be really afraid of this. That's right, he was actually from the Central Plains in the north. Although his obsession with continuing the family line and returning to one's ancestry was hidden deep, it definitely did exist. Chen Chen even remembered that in his previous life. Although Xian Ruanlong did not return to the north, he built an ancestral hall in Huixai, which was once very popular and became a local attraction. For such a person, it is best to threaten him with his offspring. Of course, it is meaningless to threaten with the lives of his offspring. It is too direct and arbitrary, and it will make people insensitive. But, turning a son into a daughter? This thing is really a very strong insult. Chen Chen thought about it and realized that if this kind of threat was placed on himself, he might not be able to bear it. However, after the initial emotional outburst, Xian Ruanlong quickly adjusted himself back. He stared at Shi Dakai fiercely and said, you are threatening me. It's useless. You've made your words so clear. What's the point of threatening me? I'm going to die. How can I care about how my son is doing? They die today, die tomorrow, or become transsexuals and die. I won't be able to see it. Out of sight, out of mind. Do you think you can threaten me? After he finished speaking, Chen Chen frowned subconsciously. This is indeed a problem. When a person dies, the birds fly up to the sky and the earth covers him. What else does he know? Although this matter sounds shocking, it seems that it is just like that. However, Shi Dakai's extravagant deeds obviously could not end here. His next words once again refreshed Chen Chen's 3 views. Who said I wanted to kill you? I just wanted to give your 7 daughters more maternal love. Otherwise, what do you think these 2 doctors are here for? Well, if you don't cooperate, I will give your 7 daughters another mother. There is only one good mother in the world. Who in this world can have 2 mothers? Or 2 biological mothers who are related by blood? That sounds happy, doesn't it? Would you like to give it a try? I consulted with you. Although you're a little old, you can still do it. The main thing is to take good care of yourself. I have planned it for you. First do the breast surgery, then cut everything else. It will take about 5 months. By that time, your son's surgery will have been completed and he will have almost recovered. It will be a very touching reunion of mother and daughter. You are not a human. Xian Ruanlong's eyes were bloodshot and he kept struggling, as if he wanted to skin the man in front of him alive. Such threats were too destructive to him. What is the ultimate insult and torture for a man? There is nothing else besides this, right? Moreover, if someone else said these words, he might think that the other person was just bragging. But the person who said this was from the Dongfeng Corps. Is there anything they can't do? If they say to kill the whole family, they will kill the whole family. Dakali has been defeated. That Chen Chen may have a northern background, and he may have principles, but his people may not be. And it is obvious that this time he does not intend to care about his people at all. Sure, Dakai smiled at Xian Wanlong and did not answer, while Xian Wanlong took 2 deep breaths, tried to calm down and said, "It's no use. It's nothing more than death. At worst, I can take them with me. You better not let me go. I tell you, even if you cut me up, I can still make a comeback. Just wait, I'll come back for revenge, just give it a try." "Okay, let's give it a try." Sure, Dakai nodded calmly and presented the final outline of his plan. "Don't even talk about coming back for revenge. I'll send you to Pattaya. I picked out the shop for you. It just so happens that I have some connections here. When the time comes, you and your 7 daughters will be sold together, and someone will be watching you. The price of mother-daughter flowers should be higher, right?" Chen Chen was stunned. He felt that he was about to give up. The interrogation was finally completed smoothly. Just as Sure Dakai said, he really had a way to make Xian Wanlong obedient. Of course, it didn't mean that Xian Wanlong would obey after he threatened him a few times. In fact, he actually prepared an operation for Xian Wanlong. Surgery from above. The doctor prepared local anesthesia for Xian Wanlong, and then used a scalpel to cut open the skin on Xian Wanlong's chest. Sure Dakai thoughtfully prepared a mirror for Xian Wanlong so that he could see the entire operation. The operation lasted for 15 minutes, and these skilled doctors had completed the implantation of the first prosthesis. Xian Wanlong had his eyes closed, but the abnormality in his chest made him subconsciously open his eyes, and it was this one glance that made him collapse. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Sure Dakai kindly told him that there was still time to regret. "If I get to the lower body later, then I will be really helpless." As a result, Xian Wanlong's psychological defenses suddenly collapsed, and during an interrogation, as long as he said the first sentence, all the subsequent confessions would become extremely smooth. It took less than half an hour for Xian Wanlong to explain the basic situation of all his businesses on the operating table. He spoke quickly and urgently because he couldn't wait to remove the foreign body in his chest. After confirming that the information was basically correct, Sure Dakai met his request, helped him suture the wound, and lifted him off the operating table. At this point, the defense breaking of Xian Wanlong has been basically completed. What follows is a more detailed and in-depth interrogation. This job can be assigned to the person arranged by Heban Xiong. As for Chen Chen, he only needs to arrange Sure Dakai to follow up. Not only Chen Chen, but everyone in the core group was stunned by this result. What seemed to them to be an extremely difficult and complicated problem. Sure Dakai actually spent just 2 hours to sort it all out, and even raised Xian Wanlong's degree of cooperation to a level that no one dared to imagine. Bao Xiaomei's eyes on Sure Dakai changed instantly. If she previously thought that Sure Dakai was just a second-in-command who followed Chen Chen around and made a living by relying on nepotism and comradeship, now she really realized her own shallowness. The Dongfeng Corps is really full of talented people. Moreover, the way they do things is really straightforward and single. Especially after hearing Chen Chen's vivid description of how Sure Dakai persuaded Xian Wanlong. Bao Xiaomei was simply overwhelmed with admiration for his imaginative thinking. It turns out that men understand men best. You may be able to think of such a method yourself, but it is absolutely impossible to accurately find so many defense breaking points. What the hell? What 4 more daughters? What more maternal love? What mother-daughter relationship is too disgusting, too vulgar, too fucking insulting? Just these few words fully reflect Sure Dakai's viciousness. He is definitely not a fool. Although he always behaves quite conservative and mature, his heart is dark. Bao Xiaomei's eyes changed when she looked at Sure Dakai. Of course, not admiration. It was fear. She was not afraid of people like Chen Chen, who was decisive and ruthless. But Sure Dakai was such a deep-minded, vicious, and cruel person that he was really afraid that Chen Chen would not notice the changes in Bao Xiaomei, so he would definitely not know that Sure Dakai had invisibly built a protective wall between Bao Xiaomei and him. Perhaps, as long as Sure Dakai was there, Bao Xiaomei's motive to attack Chen Chen would naturally weaken. Sitting in Xiaoyu's room, Chen Chen once again finished telling the story about Sure Dakai's interrogation. Unlike Bao Xiaomei, Xiaoyu's face was calm. Even after the whole process was narrated, she pointed out several shortcomings and put forward some guiding suggestions. For example, the keywords are well chosen, but without the enhancement of images and sounds, the sense of immersion is still insufficient. For example, there are too few discussions on technical things, and the authenticity is not enough. For example, the 3 daughters are not really utilized. If it were her, she would tell Xian Wanlong that she would sell the 3 daughters to do DY. Chen Chen got goosebumps after hearing these words. He subconsciously asked, "You didn't really do these things?" Xiaoyu rolled his eyes and replied, "How is that possible? On the one hand, we have discipline requirements and we can't do such a thing. On the other hand, we don't need to use such means to convince Xian Wanlong. Our background is the biggest bargaining chip. As long as I open my mouth, what can he not say? The reason I know this is not because we have used it, but because someone has threatened us with it. Noah Kong, he has done far more disgusting things than Xian Wanlong. But fortunately you killed him. Now that the secret has been declassified, we can tell you that Na Cam's men actually have another route for human and organ trafficking, and they are cooperating with Thailand. You didn't know about this matter from the beginning to the end, but you cut off this line very thoroughly. Where? The 2 women of Noah Kong? The 2 women of Sanfu. Yes, we were wiped out by you guys. That I really don't know, but the killing was not unjust." Hearing Chen Chen's words, Xiaoyu smiled and replied, "Are there any innocent drug dealers among these people? 9 out of 10 will still have 1 fish that escapes. Even if we kill 10 out of 10, it still won't be enough to pay for their crimes. Okay, let's not talk about this. Anyway, Xian Wanlong's problem has been basically solved. What are you going to do next?" Chen Chen thought for a moment, then replied, I don't plan to take over the businesses of Ruan Long Group. I can't do that much. It's best to let the coalition develop it, and I'll take a share of the profits. But I'll show you the gold over there. Do you have any ideas? Yes, definitely. Xiaoyu nodded and continued. But we don't steal yours. I didn't say I would give it to you. What I meant is that Xian Ruanlong cooperates with Thailand, and Ibangxiong can also cooperate with you. How about bringing Wugong over here, letting them invest in technology, and jointly develop the business? That's purely a business cooperation. I'll help you build a bridge, and you can negotiate on your own. No problem, bro. Chen Chen chuckled, while Xiaoyu seemed to be hesitant to speak. She looked a little suffocated, and after hesitating for a few seconds, she finally couldn't help but say, "Good comrades are good comrades, stop yelling nonsense. If you call me a good brother again, I'll turn you into a good sister." For the next 2 days, Chen Chen concentrated on doing one thing, which was to squeeze out as much information as possible from Xian Ruanlong. At the same time, he guided Bao Xiaomei to complete the negotiations with the Laotian side and determine the subsequent distribution of benefits. In fact, the negotiations with Laos went quite smoothly because they were not greedy. They took away a considerable amount of cash and several small mines owned by Xian Ruanlong, but they were not very interested in gold mining and jade. The reason is simple. These two industries are typical capital-intensive industries, and those corrupt military officers simply do not have the time or patience to wait for these industries to slowly realize cash. Their plan is very clear, which is to wait until the coalition forces gradually expand this industry, and then find ways to use administrative means such as taxes and fines to squeeze the coalition forces. But the problem is Chen Chen is not stupid. How can he just sit there and wait for death? He has arranged for Su Yu to contact Wu Kuang according to Xiaoyu's instructions. If everything goes well, it won't take long for the two sides to sign the exploration agreement and completely kick Thailand out. The gold reserves in Wishai are not abundant and the grade is not high. But as the saying goes, it is better to have some than nothing. The gold is lying there on the ground, but you don't want it? Do you really think you are a bandit? Pick up as much as you can. After all, money is really hard to make these days. In the command room of the villa, a group of people sat together again and began to discuss the benefits of this operation. The person in charge of the report was Ibangxiong, who could not hide the excitement on his face. After all, this was the first time he felt how satisfying it was to rob drug dealers. This kind of satisfaction is not just a simple sense of gain from getting rich, but more importantly, it also has a sense of justice, of doing justice. Otherwise, why did the heroes in the past rob the rich and help the poor? Because it's really soothing. Looking at the expectant eyes of the people sitting there, he coughed and said, "This time, our operation was a complete success." At the same time, the subsequent post-processing work also went quite smoothly. Here, on behalf of the shipwreck commander, I would like to thank everyone for their hard work and the bravery of the frontline soldiers. In addition, a special thanks goes out to these two people. One is Chief Shi Dakaishi, who led the interrogation of Xian Ruanlong and made our subsequent reception work go quite smoothly. One is Ms. Bao Xiaomei, who helped us deal with all kinds of relationships and was a strong support for us. Well, I won't say more. Now let's start counting the total benefits of this operation. Ibangxiong paused for a few seconds, flipped through the document in his hand, and continued. This time, apart from the allocation to Laos that we have discussed with everyone earlier, the total assets we received from the Nguyen Long Group are as follows. Cash, $370 million in bank deposits, cash and gold. High-value jade and gemstones. Estimated price is about 100 to 200 million US dollars, but the value may decrease due to market fluctuations. Assets, a jewelry processing factory, a sapphire mine, a tin mine, a shipping company, 12 large and small cargo ships, for trading companies and various goods in the trading companies, 6 hotels and casinos, and prospecting and mining rights around Huizai. In addition, there are various fixed assets, including vehicles, buildings, equipment, etc. According to Mr. Peng Shuqing's estimate, the value of various assets is about 300 million US dollars. In other words, in legitimate industries, we have confiscated a total of about 900 million US dollars in assets. In addition, we also seized a huge amount of drugs and a large amount of drug-making raw materials, totaling 190 tons. At present, all these finished products and raw materials have been transported back to Dakali and will be destroyed within 2 days. You can come and visit then. After he finished speaking, everyone showed surprise on their faces. What the hell does 190 tons of drugs and raw materials mean? The annual heroin production of the entire Golden Triangle is only 330 tons. Xian Ruanlong has actually become the drug king of the Golden Triangle. If his group is not destroyed, there will be endless troubles. Based on the factory price of Golden Triangle number 4 of approximately 3,000 US dollars per kilogram, these 190 tons of drugs are worth 570 million US dollars. It's impossible not to feel uncomfortable throwing so much money into the water. But no one present showed the slightest hesitation, because they knew that if they hesitated on this matter, they would have no chance at all to make more money in the future. So, after confirming that everyone had no objection, Ibangxiong continued speaking. Our current distribution plan is this. Since everyone has participated and contributed to this event, we will still follow the most basic principle and distribute the spoils equally. At the same time, Chief Chen Chen has stated that he will not participate in the distribution of other industries except gold minerals. Therefore, according to calculations, Dongfeng Group will take away 150 million US dollars in cash. Does anyone have any opinion on this? No, I agree. That's fine with me. Everyone answered in turn, and seeing this scene, Chen Chen nodded with satisfaction. In fact, Ibangxiong's initiative to ask this question was a trap. If someone remains silent, it means that they don't really have no opinion, but are just forced to accept it. But now, Since everyone spoke up quickly, it means that everyone has reached a consensus on the distribution plan. This is harmonious and also indicates the stability of the alliance. After Dongfeng Group share was determined, everyone else began to divide all the industries equally. This time, Bao Xiaomei also participated in the distribution. The reason was simple, not because she wanted to make money but because she needed to reach out to Laos. Chen Chen was quite satisfied with her approach. After all, the role played by the Bao family in Laos and that played by He Bongxiong in Laos were different. A small-scale spoils distribution meeting ended quickly, and next, it was time to deal with Xian Ruanlong. In fact, Chen Chen didn't need to do it himself. After all, he was a commander, and it seemed a bit degrading to him to always do murder and execution. But precisely because he was Xian Ruanlong, he had to do it himself. Nong Kong, Xian Ruanlong, and Xie Zhila, who may appear in the future, are all his inner demons. If he could kill them with his own hands, Chen Chen would never let go of the opportunity. So, Xian Ruanlong was pushed in front of him and knelt at his feet. Looking at Xian Ruanlong, whose face was filled with fear and panic, Chen Chen did not feel a trace of sympathy in his heart. All he had was gratitude. It is now 2010. Xian Wenlong's power has not yet reached its peak, and the direct evil deeds he has committed have not yet appeared on a large scale. If we kill him, many things that shouldn't have happened may not happen. The bones without flesh and blood, the police numbers that were activated and then sealed, and the familiar but eventually gray faces that often popped up in his memories. 2 years after his rebirth, he often thought he had forgotten, but in fact he still remembers it very clearly. Looking at the expressionless Chen Chen, Xian Ruanlong raised his head. He asked, "Is there really no room for negotiation? I still have a lot of information. I can help you. I can give other people away. I can cooperate. I can cooperate." His body was shaking, and even his voice became hoarse from hysteria. But Chen Chen's hand, which pulled out the pistol, was steadier than ever before. He looked Xian Ruanlong straight in the eyes and said, "No chance. You must die." Xian Ruanlong's body softened instantly. He stared at Chen Chen and said, "You will go to hell. You are no different from me. You are a devil Shura." Chen Chen smiled sarcastically and pointed the gun at Xian Ruanlong. "That's great. We can meet again when we get down there. Remember my face. Remember my eyes. Also, remember, even if we get down there, I'll still fuck you to death." Then, bang, a gunshot rang out, and everything fell silent.